Let's start by introducing Riverboat Jack. Always so excited to have this one. Riverboat Jack, how are you doing today, friend?
I'm doing great. I've been in and out of meetings about Medicare for All organizing today, and it's been super exciting. And I'm excited to get down in the trenches and get to work. Um, and I've also been planning for our second D&D session. Shark and I were playing D&D tomorrow, and I'm super excited about it.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, fantastic. I I've only played it once in college, and it was fun. But like yeah, it was only one time. That was a long time ago. But yeah, I'm excited for you. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Do you know your race, or or is that a thing that you have to do? I'm not sure.
I'm the
I don't know.
DM, so I my race is omnipotent. I don't know.
Mm.
I
Okay.
non-determined.
Uh, uh, so non-binary, got it. All right.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks so much.
race goddess.
Yeah. Next we have Shark. Shark, who is back with us. Um, Shark, do you know your race that you can be in this campaign? Again, I'm not exactly sure if that's an important thing.
People question my race all the time, but I'm pretty sure I'm black. But I appreciate it.
All right then.
No,
Fair
I
enough.
am half elf, half human, half elf.
Okay.
I'm a sorcerer. It's my first campaign. So Riverboat Jack and everyone is holding my hands. I've got the training wheels on, but you know what? They keep complimenting me. They keep it's like when you go to the dentist and you get that little piece of sugar-free candy. That's what they do every time, and it's great. They're treating me very well. We love it. I excited for tomorrow. But hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Shark 300. That's the word shark, the number 3, the letter O, and the word 0. I'm on Twitch and YouTube, basically doing the same old content everybody else does, but better. But, we have fun here. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to get down into very important business.
Thanks so much. Next, we have VIP. Name's Counterpoints. Counterpoints is back with us once again. Counterpoints, thank you so much for being around. How you doing, friend?
My sincere pleasure. And our conversation last week, I think I decided I'm just never gonna leave until you kick me. So like, I'll just be in my fucking 60s doing the fucking Reverie Roundtable on Mondays. But my name is Connor. I'm centrist or center right. You can, if you don't know me yet, then basically I'm like super reasonable until I'm not, and then I pop a blood vessel in my eyeball, and I think that's my trademark.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm a Marine veteran, law enforcement veteran, science fiction nerd, politics nerd. So if any of that interests you, I'm reviewing lots of media. Bo Burnham's new special, Full Metal Jacket, one of the best horror movies of all time, End of Watch, one of the best cop movies of all time, and a whole bunch of other shit. Oh, Warhammer Cinematics, which there was a really cool cinematic that dropped this week. If in the background you want to type in Kill Team into YouTube and check it out, there's about a minute-long cinematic that is incredibly badass, and it's everything awesome about the Warhammer 40,000 universe in about 60 seconds. So thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's not the one I'm thinking of. I saw a Warhammer cinematic a little while ago, and like it was Space Marines invading and killing some dissidents, like in a ship or something.
Yeah, that was a Starties. That was an insanely popular series that I probably brought up like 50 times on your show in the past.
Okay.
The new one features humans in gas masks against orcs with machine guns. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please check it out.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and no, they don't pay me yet.
No, they should.
One day.
You're always painting their figures. You're always like talking about it. Like, yeah, you're a good evangelist for that. All right. And to
Confirm us all.
Oda Sensei, the author of One Piece, I'm here. I am here. But let's go to Shadows. Shadows is back with us. We're always happy to have him around. He is our friendly neighborhood neolib. How you doing, Shadows?
Damn right. That's right. I'm your local neolib shill, baby.
Number 2, Neil Live of Twitch Politics, of course. Quite the Darien gap between me and Bastier, but you know what? I still get that silver medal, baby. It's been a hot minute since I've been here. It's been, what, nearly a month? It's like, I'm not even sure. I've been part of Twitch Politics for the past month. God damn. But it is good to be back. If you don't know who I am, of course, Shadows. Shadows Lightly is my full username. But just call me Shadows. Let's drop the last name. Let's not be a weird champ about it. I like to talk politics from the Neo Live Shield perspective. I also do a lot of music, so if you want to see someone play some jazz, piano, or compose and arrange live on stream, I got that too. A little bit of gaming. I got a little bit of something for everybody, so you have no reason to not go over to twitch.tv/shadowslightly. So yeah, good to be back.
He's doing a lot more than I am. Just doing politics here. All right, so it's a good reason to head over there. You might, music. You will not. You won't find worthwhile music here. We'll sing "Happy Birthday" to someone who doesn't want it to be sung to them. But other than that, and we'll sing it extremely badly. It's actually terrible. But okay, thank you, Shadows. Next, back with us once again is Kevin FM. Kevin, how are you?
I'm sleepy. How are you?
Too.
No,
Okay.
I'm doing all right though. Just a long day of work, and I'm glad to be here. It's good to see everybody here again. Connor Points, as always. Universal Discourse. Lovely to have you with me. And yeah, as for my D&D class, because I'm kind of offended nobody asked me, I'm a wizard, and last time I played I was actually a null, so I just used like a half-orc build.
Oh.
Because screw the conventional classes. I want to be something cool and unique. Please pay attention to me.
So
You're one of those.
your race was half orc.
Well, basically that's what my build used, but I was playing as what's known as a null, which is basically like a demonic hyena creature. So, basically just so that I didn't have to make up my own stats, I just copy pasted that on top of a half orc.
Okay, that's what it's for, the stats. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would like to play it again one day. Yeah, sometime in the future. But I'm just like, I literally forget exactly how it's done. But yeah, glad so many people are enjoying themselves. We used to have someone on this show who was like the head of their Dungeons and Dragons club in college, and they were quite serious about it. But yeah, it was. I don't know. I think it's an interesting world. Sorry, never mind. I'm getting distracted. Hi, Universal Discourse. How you doing?
It's okay.
How are you doing? Okay. I'm
Thanks
also a DM, so here we go. There's a whole bunch of gamers here right now.
Oh,
D&D
yeah.
Oh
people.
boy, it's gamer season.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Glad we got a lot of talent here. Okay. Tell us about yourself. Anything else?
Yeah, my stream is gonna be on and off for the next couple of weeks, but I do all things. Well, it's called All Things Quantum and Indigenous. So it's everything from quantum theory to indigenous language, thought, and culture and philosophy. It hosts several special events: East Meets West, which is where we LARP famous philosophers at a dinner party, the open mic night, and a D&D game, which is pure roleplay D&D. And I also do interviews, and I'm the discourse space. So anybody that wants to come and learn how to do, you want debate training, or you want us to solve one of your problems, and you want to learn civil discourse, come over and see me. Also, I'm an empirical researcher in counter-extremism. So I'm actively involved in countering extremism in the US, the UK, and Australia now.
Nice.
And I'm currently in transition, so I'm literally moving. So because Twitch people helped me out, which is amazing. So
Yeah, our good friend Mix Vivian Wolf is another person who, counters extremism. I'm sure you had a conversation with her.
no, never. I've never spoken to her.
Really? Okay,
Yep.
you really need to have a conversation with Mix Vivian Wolf. It's like,
Thank
yes.
you.
Go ahead.
didn't we both come from really rather violent backgrounds, right? So we tend to cancel each other out a lot. That's what happens.
You should, yeah. Well, I'm sorry if that's the case. But you should definitely talk with her. She has gone deep, and she loves talking about it, right? She has like an encyclopedic knowledge of
Yep.
extremist groups. So
Yep.
she would definitely be a great resource to talk
Really?
to.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
genuinely? Because like
yeah,
that's the real thing. Can you imagine two of us on Twitch
yeah. It's
sharing that research and stuff on Twitch? What do you guys think? Like the real thing?
yeah.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you gotta
Wow,
talk to our
Brian.
good friend
Whoa.
Extreme Wolf. I
Set
could
that up. Wow.
yeah,
I
you know
didn't
what,
know that.
I'll throw you in a group DM like now, and so you guys can talk because I'm sure you'll have plenty to say to each other.
Oh, that's
Okay.
really exciting.
Wow. That'd be awesome. That's amazing. Jeez. Holy.
So, Lornerbox, thank you as well for joining us. Lornerbox, tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Lonerbox. I have a YouTube channel where I make video essays on politics, history, internet culture, write music as well. And once or twice in a year, I'll do debate panels. Here we are.
Okay, all right. And we have again one more person who will be joining us. They're just running a little late, but they'll be here soon. Okay, so we'll get started with the first topic, and that is I got it. In 2019, a Utah judge was suspended for criticizing Trump. He made several comments on Facebook and at least one comment in court that made clear his dislike for the then president. But if the cases he was seeing had nothing to do with Trump, shouldn't he be free to state his political opinions? If a judge makes clear they support conservative values, should that warrant a punishment? Since it's clear that judges will have these opinions anyway, what's wrong with expressing them? So I think this is interesting because, you know, we do the whole free speech thing, we talk about cancel culture type thing, but like this is a person in the commission of their job, right? And an important job, certainly. But they're just expressing their opinion that they dislike Trump, right? And I'm sure we dig like just under the surface we can find judges who disliked like Obama, right, and made that known, right?
Mhm.
I don't think we have to look too far for that. This person, you know, expressed that they dislike Trump, and it didn't seem like in a way that was prejudicial to anything, at least from the article that I've read. Maybe there's something else, but it didn't seem like in a way that was like prejudicial to the cases that they were seeing, right? And so why be suspended just for stating your political opinions, right? And it's not like politics has no place in the fucking courtroom. Like it's it's definitely part of the center of all that, right? So I'm curious what you all think about this. All right, Shadows, I don't know why you have your hand up, or Universal. We'll remember introductions.
Yeah, you already know I might have my. If you didn't know, by the way, my dad is a judge, so I know quite a bit about this topic.
Great, we'll have to be last. All right, so Riverboat Jack.
So look. When you become a judge, you agree to a code of conduct and ethics. And while I agree that like judges should have freedom of speech, there are also like just professional lines where like people might be uncomfortable having a judge who appears to be extremely partial. And in the case of the judge that we're talking about today, or that was used in the article, one of the kind of foundational ideas in this code of ethics is that while you're doing your job as a judge, while you're conducting yourself as a judge, you don't want to be doing or saying or comporting yourself in a manner that is going to call into doubt your impartiality. And to a degree, this is all just kind of like a facade. Like, no, obviously, if you ask anyone, is anyone really impartial? The answer is no. But we want the illusion of that impartiality in our legal system, because without it, kind of this idea of American justice or the United States justice kind of falls apart just a little bit more. It's part of the foundational narrative. And so in this case, it's not just that like the judge was going on Twitter and voicing his opinion, which is totally his right to do, in my opinion. It's that in the courtroom, he was also making comments about like different political issues as a judge in front of a courtroom. And so I think that there are limits, and he butted up against that limit and got slapped for it. Now, the degree to which we should value this kind of veneer of impartiality, I think, is definitely up for debate, and I'm interested to hear what other people say about it.
Thanks. Okay. Universal, don't worry. We're going to get to everyone. We're just going to do introductions. Shark.
When it comes to these sorts of cases, with a lot of public figures that aren't like explicitly political, like judges, a lot of the times these sorts of people give up some right to like say some things in the course of being able to hold such public office, because if I remember correctly, I think he was voted into office, and he was suspended for 6 months for this. It wasn't just like the singular. If it was just like a single comment on his Facebook page that he said, I'd be a little bit like, I'm not sure if that's worth taking the guy to all the way up to the Supreme Court and then suspending him for. But when it's repeated comments, and even when it drags itself into court, I think lots of judges can be, it's their job sometimes to be quite opinionated. But when it's like you said, Riverboat Jack, like sometimes, I mean, we really want that veil of impartiality when it comes to a lot of our judges. And even if you feel some way, we don't want to feel like that's being dragged into the court. And whether that whether it did or didn't really affect any of the cases, we can't always know. And a lot of the times cases get thrown out because of that perceived sort of impartiality that happens. So, I mean, I think he also made comments on some people's bodies in courts as well. I think he made like inappropriate comments about a past president, like sexually, which I'm all for the memes, but I'm also not a judge. So, and also like one more thing, this guy, like, he died last year, if I remember correctly, which is also unfortunate. He was an Asian rights advocate. He seemed like a pretty decent guy all around, but I kind of like the idea of having at least some sort of like impartiality on the face of it with our judges.
Counterpoints.
Yeah, this is something I wrestled with myself. Basically, when we talk about public figures, there's some people who take on roles in our society. I used to be a law enforcement officer, and it actually really makes me cringe when I see law enforcement officers or military. Am I dead? Oh shit.
Oh,
okay.
No, sorry.
The judge.
Yeah, he died.
All
Sorry, didn't realize I have my. I'm an evil bastard, so I think that the dead deserve no more reputational protections than everybody else. So basically, being dead does not make you not a jerk in life. And I'm not saying this guy's a jerk. I'm just saying in general. So basically, what makes me cringe about military Zoomers who post TikToks in their uniform is that you're representing that uniform. You're representing that institution. Same thing with law enforcement officers. I'm sure plenty of you have cringed at seeing full-grown 40 and 50-year-old law enforcement officers who are like, in uniform, covering up their nameplate, are like, this goddamn Black Lives Matter, like that probably made you uncomfortable about how they treated some of their civilians based off of perceived political affiliation. So no, I think these conceptualizations should be enforced. And I think we need to ask of our public servants a servant's mentality. You are not a ruler. You are not a king. You are given responsibility because we, the people, have given you that responsibility. And as such, you serve all Americans, not just the Americans that you like. So if that involves some level of keeping your opinions to yourself, then sorry, that's the sacrifice that we're asking of you. And I'll leave it there until we get to the general.
You're telling me I can't twerk in my beret?
No, unfortunately not. I hate to break it to you.
How good is your twerking?
Listen, let's just say I can't do it on Twitch.
Were you in the military? Just FYI.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, but I come from a long line of military family. Both of my parents, and lots of cousins and grandparents.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, and some people do get into the military just for the clothing items. I come from the Marine Corps, so it's the dress blues. So like I know that people join the military to get sexy uniforms, but that's not what they're there for. They're not there for you to get laid in a discount at Apple.
Wait, I thought they were there for the cool guns.
That's why I joined. So yeah,
it is an aphrodisiac for
I want
some
my
ladies.
Dodge.
I'm saying.
I want my Dodge Challenger, and I want my wife that cheats on me when I go on deployed. All right, that's what I want.
Right. It's the fast track to both of those things.
Let's go with Kevin FM.
Oh, okay. Cool. So, as a professional blowhard, basically my opinion on this is that it's not necessarily something that he should have been suspended for, I think, just because there is actually a code of conduct regulating judges, both on the national level and on the state level, called the Code of Conduct for Judges. They used to be known as the canons. I think in some states they still are. And so, under Utah's courts, there actually are judicial canons that, he would have had to abide by. So, in addition to things like complying with the law, not using your office, or influence to, get you things because you're a judge, or, making or joining any other kind of political organization, I think that in this instance, I don't really think that comments about a president in particular on social media would necessarily be something that would have, that should have gotten him suspended. I just think that's a little silly. That should have gotten because when it comes to impartiality, which is under the Canon 3 of Utah's judicial canons, I think it more has to do with being impartial as a judge in the court. So while joining different organizations, basically just to prevent the appearance of impartiality, is one thing, which I would agree with if that was the case. Here he was just exercising his First Amendment rights on social media, which anybody does, for whatever reason. Not to mention, conservative judges have done this plenty of times without repercussions. So, or they made their disdain of Obama or Joe Biden well known. So I just don't think that this is a situation where he would have been suspended. And yeah, I just think that the Utah Supreme Court probably made the wrong move here.
Thanks so much. Okay, let's go to Lorna Box.
Yeah, okay. I think one of the first things I noticed about this question was that as a British person, we just never talk about judges and like lawyers and things like that very often in public. I don't know why, but it was interesting. As for this case, I think, yeah, it looks like there was that kind of, whether you want to call it an arbitrary line or not, of, I think it was quite a few of the comments this person made was in a courtroom rather than on social media, which is I think where the so-called line was crossed. And I do agree with, I can't remember who it was, whoever said that this is basically an arbitrary line. Like, as far as I know in America, like, as with political statements in public, like, if you're an American judge and you publicly describe yourself as an originalist, you are giving quite a lot away about your politics already. But I think in a sense that it's kind of like, although it's an arbitrary line, it's kind of like manners. There are arbitrary lines and manners as well, but they still allow you to identify red flags in people. And I just kind of came into this topic today, but I think there was also like, as well as Trump, he was this judge was also making like lewd comments about Bill Clinton's sex life as well at some point. And yeah, I think for me that line would maybe be saying it in a courtroom. I don't maybe think that's maybe inappropriate.
English discourse.
In 2019, I was happy when any public official was willing to like speak out against Trump. Anything he did, that's fine. For a judge to do it. There's exercising your First Amendment rights, which any judge would know exactly what that is because they have to defend that. But it sounds like, the guy just, impartiality actually means impartiality in decision making. It doesn't mean impartiality in what you think about somebody or what do you think about another public figure. So it just sounds like he does have a track record of sitting on his bench behind his gavel and sort of just, truth has a habit of falling out of his mouth and he doesn't rein it in. I guess, maybe, he was inappropriate, but to suspend a judge for that and prevent him from fulfilling his vital function is ridiculous. Tape his mouth shut, but let him keep judging.
So, Shadows, I understand you have no connection to this whatsoever. So,
Yeah,
if you have, if you can struggle
Not-
to come up with an opinion on this, might be helpful.
I know it's going to be so hard. I have no connection at all. I actually looked up. I did not get to read it. It said he is a justice court judge, which I had to search on my phone because I don't want to show my location and dox myself. But it seems to be county by county. But of course, my dad is a federal judge, so I'm going to use that. The standards for that are extremely, extremely stringent. For pretty much all my life, both of my parents, my mom for a completely different classified reason, have not been able to donate to politicians because of their government jobs. My dad is not allowed to donate under his name, period. If he does, he could get fired. When I used to have a bunch of flags up on all up in this wall, I could not fully open my shades over here in my window because you'd be able to see flags from the street. That could get him fired, even if it is a U.S. flag. He's not allowed. You're not supposed to have flags visible from street view. That can be a problem. So it is very stringent for federal judges. It doesn't matter what level you are, whether you're magistrate, your district court, your circuit court. You are not allowed to be political at the federal level. The only people who get away with this are the Supreme Court judges, which, to be fair, you're really fucking successful if you got to that level, but they don't really have to mask it as like a judicial opinion in the same way that other judges would when they talk about their politics. So I guess it depends on, what the county and state policies are for judges like that, but if they want to have it the same as federal judges, that is up to the state, and they are allowed to do that, and I don't think that if you're employed by the federal government, you definitely shouldn't be political at all behind the bench. And you probably shouldn't if you're funded by state and local tax dollars. I don't see why it'd be different. So, yeah, that's my take.
So, Shadows brings up an interesting point talking about the Supreme Court, right? And how they don't have to follow those rules. There's a good reason for that. It's because there literally are no rules for the Supreme Court. They don't have a code of ethics, so they can just do whatever. Which I think that's in itself a problem for completely separate reasons, right?
Oh, they can just make shit up on the fly, and that's the law of the United States. It's wild.
We know, was it Clarence? Yeah, well, yeah. We know Clarence Thomas, right? And his wife actively are active in conservative politics, right? And fundraising and everything, right? Okay, sure, that's allowed. Oh, great. But this guy on the other end, right? States his dislike for Trump, right? And makes and everyone here said the same thing, lewd comment about Bill Clinton. As far as I know, I didn't see any article exactly what he said, but it's gonna be a Monica Lewinsky joke, right? Okay.
Hey,
sure.
my boy got some dome in the Oval Office. Put some respect on that.
Yeah. So wow. What?
I think the statement about Bill Clinton was
Sure,
on
right.
social media, which is mostly private. So yeah, not too
Yeah.
fussed about that.
It's I'm right now. I'm struggling to see why this person deserves to be punished. And again, because let's not pretend that these judges aren't political, right? Shadows' father, I'm sure, has opinions on the world around him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Exactly, right?
Oh,
we
yeah.
know that's the case,
And they're good
right?
ones too. My dad is actually the smartest person I've ever met. Love you, Dad, if you're watching. But the thing is, he probably is. He usually is. It's kind of weird how much he watches.
He watches.
Yeah.
Your dad watches this.
Yeah, my dad watches pretty much most of my streams. My
Hi,
parents are very
Shadows Dad.
supportive.
Hi, Shadows Dad. You're really gonna hate how much I cuss.
My
Honor.
mom has already complained about that.
Yeah.
Really? Your mom too? Okay. This
Yeah,
is
she's
making
like,
my day.
Your Honor, if I have to go before you for whatever
Maureen.
reason, please don't hate me for yelling at your son if I have to.
I've yelled at his son a lot more.
I know, but
Well,
you
they
don't
know
have to
how
worry
much I
about
love
going
you,
before him
so.
in a court.
Yeah, but he has a lot of opinions, but basically he's, when he talks about stuff like that, it's important that, he just doesn't talk about it behind the bench. There are some like judicial opinions, like that's why I'm always like very reserved when I talk about, that's why I just never bring up my parents' politics, because my mom, I just don't do it much, and I can't with my dad. I could only bring up like legal opinions that he has. So I think it's good that judges have to be reserved about their politics, and they can't actually talk about their politics, especially when they're on the bench. If you bring your politics into a case, or you set any opinion, you are setting up a precedence to bring in any other views. Like, I think someone mentioned, like, even if he doesn't have cases that have to do with Trump, I don't see what the problem is here. I actually think there is a problem, because if you bring up one political opinion, what's going to stop you from bringing up another? And sure, you may not bring up the ones that have to deal with the case, but if you have politics that will influence how you rule in the case, you probably shouldn't be talking about politics when you're on the bench and you have to make a ruling.
Okay. Other people who disagreed with. Oh, so go ahead. Verbo Jack. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is actually interesting. Like, my educational background is in English literature, right? And in English literature, a main focus of this of the studies is how different people and different interpretations can exist around a different text, and how those interpretations can be fueled by politics. And this gets especially tricky when we get into the world of judges and legal interpretation, because that same type of political interpretation exists when we're interpreting the law as well. And so when we're talking about judges having biases, well, it's all well and good to say, well, you can't get involved in like public politics, but what if we're talking about private funding of judges? Like, for example, the Federalist Society is a noteworthy kind of example of different judges who commit to a certain way of interpreting the law, which isn't necessarily considered the same as like saying go Trump or go Biden, but it is still in effect an act of political interpretation and political bias that I think we could all probably agree on. I don't know. Do we think we live in a world where like the law means what it means and there aren't any other ways to interpret the law?
If we're talking about constitutional originalism, then yeah, I would say I have an originalist bent, but that's, I don't know. Shit.
Well, and like that, and that's the thing. There's even disagreements within like what does it mean to interpret the Constitution as an originalist, right? Because different, like, none of us are mind readers. None of us know exactly what the founders meant when they wrote the Constitution. Well, we can make our best guesses, and you can make different arguments for different interpretations.
I would like to address this though, because this is the thing that's a little bit frustrating for me. Because I seriously think that like people think that like 10,000 before Christ and 200 years ago have the same amount of like historical data available, and they don't. People were writing actively. They kept journals, they kept diaries. Pretty much after 1500, we had the printing press, like all that kind of stuff. So we do understand some level of what people intended 200 years ago. And just going down this little rabbit hole real quick, and then I promise to jump back. I think that the whole point of a legislative body is to pass a law that's contemporary with its time, and the actions of a legislative body in the current day should be to overrule those laws in line with the will of the people at the time, basically. And if you don't have that will to overrule that law, then that law exists as it stands. Get pissed off enough about it in order to change it. But talking about, like, I wouldn't mind expanding this topic to, should people who work for the public be able to broadcast their political opinions publicly? Because basically what this immediately brings to mind for me is I was basically not allowed to have an open political opinion for 8 years of my life. As a law enforcement officer and as a active duty military person, I wasn't allowed to broadcast my opinion, and I especially was not allowed to broadcast my opinion as a member of this. I could not say, I'm Lance Corporal, Connor from, blah, 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 and I think that legalizing marijuana is based. I would have, but I didn't. So, but that's kind of my point is, we are endowed as public servants with the responsibility of protecting the entire American public, not just a segment of it. And when you start virtue signaling to one side of it, it basically shows that you only give a shit about one part of it, and that just doesn't work within the American liberal framework.
So, just real quick, this is why in my opening statement I talked about kind of the illusion of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Impartiality. The illusion of impartiality in our system is that judges, all conform to a similar or same way of interpreting the law. And, as we kind of demonstrated just now between, Connor and I, even within, a narrow definition of, originalism, for example, you can have disagreements and very intense different interpretations of a law that can lead to different outcomes. And when we're talking about judges from a full political spectrum, we're talking about many different ways to interpret laws, and different ways to view text and language, and that can get really messy. So when we're talking about political speech as it relates to judges, how important is it to us to have this veneer of impartiality?
Let's go to Shadows first, and then Universal, and we'll get back to you, okay? Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, because we were talking a lot about originalism versus textualism. This is what I was trying to say when there's a distinction between political and legal. Obviously, law has a political bent to it, but there are legal subjects that are almost completely legal, and really not that political. Obviously, there is some politics in textualism versus originalism, but these are legal opinions. That if my dad was not a boomer and he actually had a Facebook or a Twitter, he could talk about his opinions on textualism or originalism or the Fourth Amendment or shit like that. But he couldn't go out there and tweet some shit about, Trump. So these are opinions that judges are allowed to broadcast, and that is how people in SCOTUS actually get away with, shitting on presidents. Because even though they're not supposed to, if they just add a light veneer of, it's my legal opinion, they get away with it. That's how they do this. That's how Antonin Scalia got away with writing a book on Obama, because he said, it has to do with my interpretations of laws he's passed and executive orders and my legal opinions. So yeah.
So I wanted to bring this up, Shadows. Again, we'll go to Universal, Kevin, if I haven't been counter afterwards. But I wanted to bring this up. I'm assuming your father was a lawyer previously, right?
Yeah, this is his fourth government job, so yeah. Yeah, okay, right? And lawyers, right, and law students, write opinion pieces on these things all the time, right? On policy, on politics, they put it in legal scholar books. You know what I'm talking about? Journals. That's the thing.
Law reviews.
They'll put it in there, and they may get famous for if they write something particularly interesting, right? So to pretend that once they put on the robes, that's all gone. I had a big argument about this just last week. On another one of my shows, we on exactly this. Then this disappears afterwards. No, of course they're this is not partisan. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was it with Peace? Was it with
No, it wasn't Pisco. It was someone else. I've had this argument with Pisco months ago. But it seems obvious. Of course, they still have these opinions, and so I think Arundel was getting to the heart of this. Right? It's a veneer of impartiality, right? Sure, they're not actively saying it, but some of them are thinking of it, right? We know that some people, some of the judges who are involved with immigration, right? In immigration courts, don't like immigrants, right? Like we can understand there's a thing that happens, right? Or would maybe even less like don't like them, but would like a much more restrictive immigration policy, right? There's a thing, we know they exist, and to pretend that they don't, right? It just I don't know, but all right, let's see what other you have to say. Universal discourse.
Yeah, I think you're talking about impartiality and blah 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 blah. That was not a legal opinion this man gave. It was a personal opinion. There's nothing constraining his right to express his personal opinions, judge or otherwise. President could express his personal opinions with impunity. Nobody did jack shit about that. So this guy can say what he wants. Maybe a douche, as long as his decision making was impartial. So what?
Well, I think you're missing
Personal
the point
opinion. Maybe he's So it has nothing to do with his position at all. There's no law to it, all right? So the actual issue of do you want a judge to really appear to be impartial? Be impartial, the veneer. I don't know. I'd rather have a guy just tell me that God's honest truth than put on a mask and I'm supposed to worship at the holy altar of his impunity here.
Opinions cannot be truth or cannot be.
Therefore, there's nothing to govern them, and therefore he can say what he wants as a personal opinion.
Well, I think
also,
that
a legal analysis of Obama really is a legal opinion, which, I mean, I would read that in a heartbeat. I'd want to see the critique of it, too. What he said was some personal crap. He has a big, he flaps at the lips. The guy just doesn't know how to shut up about stuff. Probably irritates people. But why would you suspend the vital function of a court for 6 months because he has a fat mouth? I mean, there were 20 million other ways you could have dealt with it.
Oh yeah, no.
Are you obstructing justice by slapping him on the wrist and going, you're saying mean things about a president that everybody hates? Oh my God, you can't do your job. He's not a government employee either. He's appointed. It's a bit of a difference.
Let's go, Kevin, and then counter.
Yeah, I think that I think that I see a discrepancy between what Universal Discourse is saying and what Shadows is saying, because on the one hand, I do understand that when we're talking about the judicial canons or other rules that govern judges, judges are basically governed in a way where it's not only about, whether they actually are impartial or not, but the appearance of impartiality or the appearance of impropriety, because, from a structural perspective in the legal system, for example, a judge has to be impartial, or at least seem as such, so their legitimacy is not called into question. So, on the one hand, I do understand that, and so I do understand the distinction of, law, at least procedural law, versus, public or personal opinion. But on the other hand, to Universal Discourse's point, and I'm not trying to both sides this, I'm just trying to parse this stuff out, like, judges on state levels, and even in lower federal levels, are treated much differently than basically the appointed politicians of the Supreme Court of the United States. Like, all of us, I think, can agree that, the Supreme Court justices are not really traditional judges in the sense that, the powers given to them through Marbury versus Madison basically makes it so that, they can pretty much interpret the Constitution how they see it. So, Scalia is way different than the judge that we're talking about here in Utah, Judge Kwan. So, I think Kwan sharing his personal opinion about Trump, the most despised president in American history, is a little different. And there's probably just a double standard that's played between, normal judges and Supreme Court justices. Now, do I think that they should be expressing their opinion on the bench? No. But I just think that, I don't know, I think that we're kind of traversing into two different worlds when, we're talking about how a judge should appear versus, what the reality is with judges and their opinions. Because even with the whole originalist or textualist argument, Scalia was a huge pioneer of that, but before that, the Supreme Court looked at the legislative intent behind statutes that they were supposed to either uphold or get rid of, and before that, justices just made up constitutional provisions like freedom of contract. So, those types of standards change. So I don't think the legal profession standards are what we should be focusing on in terms of this specific story.
Let's go to counterpoints and then shadows and Shark. Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Okay. So counterpoints.
Yeah, so I wanted to address the comment, kind of like, why would we care, or what's even the appropriateness of this veneer of impartiality. And again, like, I'm trying to open this up to like all public officials, because I think if we had generals or law enforcement officers or even tax auditors or anything like that, basically coming out and saying like, fuck conservatives, they're all pieces of shit. Fuck progressives, they're a bunch of fucking lunatics. Basically what we would expect, just based off of their hot Twitter takes, which we should all get off of Twitter. We're not going to, because we're addicted to it. But basically their hot Twitter takes. What we would expect is a certain level of, basically for their public opinions to color their judgments. And I think something that either UD said or Riverboat Jack said was, it's not so much actual impartiality that we're expecting out of these people. We're expecting impartiality in their decisions. So we're expecting them to not necessarily remove their biases completely. I think that's impossible. I don't think that there's such thing as a completely unbiased person. But for somebody to analyze their biases and then make a fair ruling under this pretext. Whether or not this actually happens is a different conversation, but whether or not this is an ideal to strive for, I think is important. Because basically what I've heard so far is like an appeal to hypocrisy, where we're like, oh, well, conservative judges were a bunch of fucking douchebags. Let's be real here. Oftentimes conservatives appeal to hypocrisy while just engaging in really bad behavior. If our response to every single time that somebody does something bad is like, well, I want to do bad shit too, we're going to destroy this fucking country. So I'll leave it
well on our way. I'm okay. I think about the cops though, right? And then we'll go to Shadows and Shark. I think about the cops. The cops literally have the ability to execute you, right? So it's a little different from judges, but I think a good retort to that is that judges can imprison you. Which is another act of violence that can be put upon you.
Yeah, what's weird though, what I want to share, because I know what you're saying, but oftentimes, like, as the person who was on the street or whatever, I didn't feel that individually empowered. I felt vested with power. And there's a difference between individually holding power versus being vested with power. I actually don't have power. I'm an individual. But I have been given power by the court to affect certain rights and responsibilities. And if I step outside of those rights and responsibilities, I could actually get fisted by the legal court system. That's actually a legal term. I'm sure Shadow's dad is going to appreciate that term. But that's the point. Is basically like, I'm just a representative of the courts. That my power, while real, is located in a different location, and that's actually the courthouse downtown.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I think we've had a whole movement about how cops aren't accountable. So I'm skeptical of this.
Well, it's is versus should. Like,
okay.
Is versus should.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, but like, so, all right, sticking on cops for a second, and I think cops are distinct from judges, right? But sticking on that for a second, white nationalists. We know white nationalists have infiltrated the cops, right? Like this is just a known thing that's happened. A specific effort they've made to accomplish, to get those skills, to put themselves in those positions. Okay, if we find out someone is a white nationalist, but has never expressed that opinion, right? Then should that cop stay on the job?
No.
Yeah, I would never trust somebody to be so unbiased that they wouldn't let that color the way that they worked. Yeah, that's how would we have hypothetically found out that this person was a white nationalist?
You could have found out that he was previously part of an organization. He may have left the organization, right? But part of an organization previously.
There's actually a specific specific example in Virginia where there was this fella who was a Chesterfield County school resource officer, but it was actually found out from folks online that he used to be part of Identity Europa and might have actually still been a member.
Oh.
And, you know, in terms of things like that, you know, there was bias training. And Connor, feel free to cap my ass if I get this wrong, but basically it was to address unconscious biases that people might have. And so if you're part of a white supremacist group, then you're definitely going to feel a certain way about certain people that you're supposed to have some kind of authority over.
Yeah, and that's my thing is like, so for instance, like, as a part of our hiring process, there was like background checks, you know, basically a psych exam, like all that kind of stuff. And I just don't think that you can like really get away from that. So for instance, like if somebody was like a teenager and they were involved in like a skins group and they went to like punk shows and beat the shit out of people, but now they don't believe in that anymore and they're like a universalist and they're very progressive and like all that kind of shit. I don't know how far we go back to people's behavior in the past versus how they presently believe. But if your current politics are not civic nationalist, basically, I think of America as a civic nationalist country in ideal, if not in practicality, where your race, your gender identity, your sex should not matter in the way that the system treats you. Now, obviously, that's not true, but that's the ideal that we should strive for. So that's kind of where if somebody specifically holds an ideology that's counter to that, I don't know how that squares with the ideal of America.
Let's go to Shadow, Shark, and then Universal. I think you had your hand up previously.
Okay, yeah. So I want to make 2 points. I'm going to respond to yours, and then also make the original point I wanted to make, which was actually connecting cops to how a judge might act. So to respond to your thing, Prime, I would say 100% that you should be able to bar white nationalists from stuff like this. When my dad was sworn in, actually, I remember, because I was in high school, so my memory actually goes far enough back to remember that, thankfully. I remember him putting his hand on the Bible, his boss having it in both, you know. He had to swear, actually, that he's never been part of an anti-government protest. That is something that judges at his level have to do. So if he was part of a group that was explicitly anti-government, that would immediately disqualify him. So I think it'd be fair for other areas of law enforcement to disqualify them if they've been part of certain groups or hold certain ideas that they think could put the public at harm. And then the second point I wanted to make, which was going to connect cops to judges, is, you know, let's say you have one of these, you know, white nationalist cops. If you had the power of a robot and could immediately scan their Facebook and know that they donated to Trump like a gazillion times, you're probably gonna grab the MAGA hat and put your hands on the 10 and 2 when he pulls up to your car window, because you know that's gonna do you well if you are someone with a MAGA hat in your glove compartment. Similarly, you know, you would also probably try and, you know, bend your politics or, you know, request, you know, a different judge for a case. Like, let's use something in my area. Let's say, you know, in the Boeing case, they had to appeal. And they had to deal with the circuit court judge, and they looked this guy up, and if he was allowed to donate under his name, maybe they know that he donated to so many Democrats, and that they could see his Twitter and be like, he's, you know, crying about more regulation, especially in the transport industry. They're going to be like, oh, we are so fucked on this case. We're losing this. We're just going to mail it in. Or they're going to try and get a different judge. This is why impartiality matters. This is why we don't want, you know, people in the field of law, in the field of, you know, doing their due diligence and serving justice. That's why we don't want them to air their political beliefs. That judge, even if he isn't allowed to, you know, donate under his name or, you know, tweet those opinions, he might still rule against them. But we don't want those, you know, attorneys working for Boeing knowing that they're going to be fucked walking into it. They want to walk into it thinking, if we do our best and put our best foot forward, we're probably going to do well. We want them
I
to
mean,
at least
true.
think that.
So hold on though.
True.
Okay, and then with Shark and Universal afterwards. But if you look at a judge's record, right, and you go back, understand how they've ruled on a certain number of cases, in a certain category at least, right, specialties,
Sure.
then you'll find a pattern, will you not? Right?
Yeah, you will.
It's not as if, and I wish it was the case, right? But it's not as if that when they get each individual case, they come at it with this blank mind, like this a completely blank slate, and then are like building their opinion from there, right? They come from a set of experiences in the past, in the present, and they come with a perspective that's colored. So we can understand that, like we can guess at and probably very well, especially about judge with long enough history. We can guess at their political opinions, right? But it's simply if they said it. Okay,
I'll
well
be
that's
right
too
back.
far. Sure. Well, that's too far. That I like. It's not like I don't see what you and Connor and everyone else is trying to say. I get that, you know. But
Yeah,
like
I
it
get
just
your
seems like
point.
the thing that we're fighting for here is paper thin.
I get what you're saying, because I would definitely agree that like it's paper thin when it comes to someone who deals with the first initial case, but it's definitely different for an appellate court judge. I get what you're saying though. If they've done similar cases and which are obviously public record, rulings have to be public record, and those cases and the material is public record because that's just how our transparent legal system works. That is true that they can probably make an inference, but that I would say is very different than saying fuck Boeing and fuck their stupid dumbass engineers who made the Max 737. It's very different than looking at these past cases and seeing a judge might have a bias towards airline corporations. I think that's very different.
All right, let's go to Shark and the Universal.
I think having these sorts of they're basically like manners, and while we cannot control like what people are like really thinking, I think it's really good to get judges in the mindset like once they walk into court or once they start to get a case in their lap, that they have the idea that they leave their politics at the door. And even if they don't always do it, just the getting in the mindset that, oh, I'm going to be punished for this, or oh, this is going to like look bad on my record, especially for judges who really want, like lots of judges really want to move up in the ladder. They want to be big boy judges, not like little district judges. They want to be big judges. So having those sorts of things on their record that makes them look like they're really biased can sometimes hold them back and treat them like poorly. And I really feel like being able to, even though like not putting your elbows on the table or like chewing with your mouth open, that's not going to like kill anyone. I just think like the small amount of etiquette that you do can put you in the right mindset for even starting to be a judge in the first place. And I kind of think of these laws kind of like what we have to abide by here on Twitch. I mean, I would really love it if I could, me personally, as a broken human who has ADHD, mental health, problems, I would love to be able to use the R word more. I would love it. I love the R word. It's so punchy and it's great. I love it personally. And I'm going to put my face on that one. I love it. But I don't want conservatives using it a lot. Lots of the times when they use it, it's very bad, and maybe once in a while when I see Candace Owens, I maybe hypothetically in another dimension, but not right here, would like to say the N-word with a hard R. But maybe it's best for all of us not to say the N-word just at all. Because with those laws, right, even if I can get dinged with it, right, and I use it and every time I use it, it's great, but every time everyone else uses it, it's bad. Even if I use it when it's great, having those sorts of things here, even if I can get dinged with it, I think makes the community a better place entirely. And so even though it may be arbitrary for me, or maybe arbitrary in this situation, or may not always hold up, having like an even standard so everyone feels like they're being treated fairly, and also can get us in the right mindset of just being here in the first place, that can make the community and as law help judges be better.
Let's go to Universal, Loner, and Connor.
Yeah, I'm still kind of stuck on the not getting not all the anecdotes for me didn't stick the landing. So I'm still stuck on trying to see cops and judges having anything to do with each other, and finding out whether
Wait, really?
with this particular case, it still for me it still sticks to a personal opinion is not whatever. It's not a legal opinion. So what's the real problem? I mean, why should somebody be suspended for saying what they think in any forum, anywhere, no matter what their position is? Because, like I said, you would have had to have impeached the president the day he opened his mouth. So I'm not sure where the hypocrisy is. Double standards, or is it social? What is it about what this guy did that makes people think, oh, he should be shut up and he should be shut down and poo-poo, and who pee-pee poo-pooed this guy? Why? It doesn't make sense.
Can you clarify something in your point for me really quickly, Universal?
Maybe. I'll try.
You said you don't see the connection between
yeah, I didn't quite
judges and
get the
cops.
connection between the cop and judge, so
Yeah,
I'll
the
wait
police
for that
department
later.
is literally an arm of the justice
If you say
department.
so, but I'll wait for that later. I just wanted to put my take on the table. I'm still not at all convinced that he should have been suspended or held accountable at all.
Okay, just
So I'm
want
waiting.
clarification.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
waiting for that.
Sure. Well, let's go to Loner, Counter, and then Report Jack.
Yeah, Shadows, I had a couple of questions for you, I think. But the first one was, you said something about a judge isn't allowed in a particular position if they were ever part of an anti-government organization. Was that what you said?
Yes, that's correct. My dad had
How-
he had to swear that he's never been part of an anti-government organization, like that is
How-
protested against the government.
How broad is that? So if you protested Vietnam as a student, you couldn't get that high as a judge.
I wonder, because most of those judges probably would have been sworn in late 90s and early 2000s.
Not the
but it
specifics.
is-
I'm just taking like an example, like Iraq War or something. Like
I don't think if you just generally were part of a protest that had to deal with government foreign policy. I think it's more you were part of an organization that dealt with that specifically. And
Okay,
we're like organizing protests against certain laws being certain actions of the government. I think that could get you in sticky waters.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the threshold is. I guess the second thing I had to ask, I'm not really married to any position here at the moment, but when it came to that thing about the veneer of impartiality, because I think we all acknowledge it is a veneer. Like when you mentioned the way that Scalia wrote a book about an originalist interpretation of Obama, like we all know that was political. And I think it was, in that case, was it not Affordable Care Act? Like we all know what the political intentions of doing that were. If anything, maybe were they not more of an indicator of allowing your politics to influence your legal decisions than what this judge did was?
Wait, can you? I kind of missed the last part.
With what Scalia did with, say, writing with, if someone uses, like, say, they're going to use an originalist interpretation of a president, and that's legal opinion, but we all know that like that's very politically weighted. Is that not even more like a stronger declaration of your political leanings and how your politics will influence your decisions in court compared to what this judge who from Utah did?
I would agree that it would definitely have to do. It definitely impacts more, I guess, your rulings. Like I think a good example would be, let's say a liberal judge says that they are more in favor of a Fourth Amendment interpretation rather than a 14th Amendment when it comes to abortion. It would. That means that they would be very stringent on the warrants they would approve. But I would rather, a liberal judge say, I am more swayed by a Fourth Amendment than a 14th Amendment, rather than that liberal judge be like straight up, oh, I'm super pro-choice. We shouldn't ban until the third trimester. I think for when it comes to looking impartial, that's much more important, especially since, let's be honest, the overwhelming majority of the population in America doesn't know what the fuck nuance is. So if they say Fourth Amendment versus 14th Amendment, they're like, oh, you're just really smart and informed. So they might not even understand what that dude is saying.
Well, in terms of this,
Kevin, yeah. So hold on, we'll go to
I'm so sorry.
no problem. Counter Jack, then Kevin, please.
Yeah, Kevin, or I'll be brief. So the reason why I wanted to bring up and emphasize this importance is because, like, right now, if you opened up the Pandora's box on everybody having a public officials having public opinions, then what you're going to have is essentially like wars between ideologies, which we kind of already do, but with the veneer of impartiality, at least we can pretend that people are some level impartial. So, for instance, with Shadow's dad. Who would absolutely agree that fisting is a technical legal term. He, like, basically, in reference to that, since people don't really know his ideology, yeah, they can guess, they can look up his previous rulings, they can guess, they can do this, they can do that, but at the same time, they ultimately don't know. Whereas if he was like, oh yeah, I'm MAGA all the way, 100%, Trump baby, then basically what we're going to have is we're going to have an ideological battle for his seat. If he's, I don't know if federal judges are nominated positions, but still, any judge that is a nominated position is going to become a purely ideological struggle. And then Lonerbox, I kind of wanted to define what I think is probably the difference here. I think that there's some institutions or organized groups that want to dissolve the state versus groups that protest the actions of a state. So in America, we do have like a decent anarchist libertarian subculture here. So whether that's leftist anarchists or right-wing anarchists, we do have them. The Boogaloo Boys, I would cite specifically as an anti-government extremist group that basically want to dissolve the government as it exists now and reconstitute it more in line with the originalist constitution of the early 19th century, basically. So they wouldn't protest the actions of a government. They want to dissolve it entirely, and I think that's a difference. The Weathermen Underground was a terroristic organization that did some anti-government bombings in the 70s. I think that would be a left-wing example of an anti-government institution, not somebody who simply protested the actions of the government. Then finally, I wanted to bring up, you were asking why Scalia's perspectives weren't worse than the other judges. I think something that we said earlier was that they were, and openly so. And that's part of the problem with the Supreme Court justice in the United States, is that it is politically and ideologically known where their sympathies are, because often by the time they reach the level that they can be nominated, you basically know their allegiance. And it oftentimes boils down to like constitutional revisionism versus constitutional originalism, which basically tells you that, like, are you going to interpret the law the way that you think it should be interpreted in the modern context, in the modern day, and with modern America? Or are you going to go back 100 years to try to understand the context in which the law was created and then interpret it that way? Conservatives largely are going to be originalists, and progressives are going to be largely revisionists. And I would leave it there.
I think that revisionism is a bit of a loaded term. I would say more the living document doctrine would probably be a better way to describe the progressive position.
I'm okay with whatever term is appropriate. I just couldn't think of the exactly correct term, so I just used revision. So my bad if that's too loaded.
So I checked just to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind, because I want to be accurate. But like, federal judges are nominated, right? And there is an ideological battlefield them. The fact that McConnell blocked Obama from filling in, and Obama didn't really put much effort into it, but like filling in judges, right? That was a problem. And then like the fact McConnell's greatest project, Mitch McConnell's greatest project, is filling in those empty seats when Trump got into office, right? Like completely changing the identity of the judiciary, right? And he didn't do it with like random judges, like, oh, let's pull the names out of the hat, right? So we get. He knew like the ideological bent of those judges beforehand.
But isn't that toxic as fuck and on the verge of destroying our fucking country?
Yeah, but so suspend them then, like they did this guy.
No, but I mean, I think Connor would say, as far as we know, those judges haven't said anything political on the bench, right?
Stole the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. So, but we know they have an ideological a bent to them. Like, that's why they had him there. And I don't know, my feelings are a big mix. I'm sad that my side lost that fight to fill in judiciary, but like, it kind of just makes sense. Look, like the judicial system means a lot. It's extremely important. It's very powerful in our system, right? So like, why wouldn't it? Like, I wish my side was better at it, and then we could fill in the judges that would rule the way we want them to.
But
I mean, I was about to say, like, something
can I-
that.
Oh,
yeah,
Con-
Corey,
Con-
go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to do a really quick counterpoint. Basically what I would say is, like, are you not surprised though by the way that the Supreme Court and some of these conservative justices have ruled? Some of these conservative justices have ruled against Trump. Some of them were like part of the people who fought some of the immigration bans, the Muslim ban, like all that kind of stuff. Some of the conservative justices. So, for instance, the Supreme Court. I think that a lower court decided in favor of a transgender appellant. For like a school system, like they appealed, like I need to be able to use the bathroom of my gender of preference. School system tried to shoot them down, appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ultimately declined to hear the case, which is kind of like a de facto pro-progressive ruling. So like I know it's maybe not the victory that you're looking for. But I do think that there's like a more narrow Overton window when it comes to like constitutional interpretation than we're giving them credit for.
So to address this, and Kevin, if you want to directly address afterwards, fine. Then we'll go to Jack.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No,
run my fat lawyer mouth.
no, it's fine. It's fine. But and this going back to the argument that I had last week over this, right? Whether the Supreme Court is all partisan. There's even better cases to your point, counterpoints. There was like there are two cases that basically were pro-trans, right? I can't remember the names.
You're thinking of the Title IX one.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's another one, I think. But in any case, right? That's because, and this is what I said last week, that's because these people aren't partisan bots, right? Like, they are, they can think for themselves, and they can rule on these court cases for different reasons, right? Like their focus can be something else, right? Rather than like what, like the legal, the thing that sways them doesn't necessarily have to be the thing that we think is most important within a case, right? There could be some other legal point. I'm not being not very eloquent here. I'm sorry, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say, right? You get it. So it could be lots of things, reasons why they rule the way they rule, right? You'd have to look at the actual opinions to understand why they did so, right? And that gives you a bit of insight as to how they will rule in the future. My only point last week is that I wouldn't rely on the justice system, the judicial system, to be the avenue of liberation for our trans brothers and sisters. That was like my only point, is that especially because the federal judiciary has been changed so much to be so conservative, right? I was only saying that yes, we have two cases that are good signs, and hopefully, like, they lead to more. I want that to be the case, but you can't be sure. You cannot be sure of these things, especially if you have judges that could be ideologically hostile. But they may not be. Who knows? That was my only point before. But in any case, Kevin, if you want to say something quick, then we gotta go to Jack.
Yeah, of course. And Jack, did you actually want to go and get your point out before I did? I kind of jumped the line there.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things is I think I'd be more amenable to like this idea of depoliticization. I always have trouble saying that. Of courts and judges, if we could take away like private money out of like sponsoring judges, or like private money out of like tanking judges, like I think that's kind of an abomination that is awful for our legal system. When we're talking about it, not just like public funds, but when we have a country that has billionaires in it who can literally just throw $100 million at judges who agree with their tax proposals or an interpretation that backs up tax proposals that they like. I think that's a huge problem. But to universal discourses, like repeated questions, I think the main issue here is that judges usually, and this depends on a state-by-state kind of thing, agree to a code of conduct, and that code of conduct is specifically kind of structured to be to like force judges to kind of give up at least some of their rights of free speech in order to build up this again what we have been calling this veneer of impartiality. And it is definitely an infringement on free speech, but I think judges who agree to codes of conduct that are limiting in that way are aware of that. It's just that they don't tend to get dinged that often, and usually what ends up happening is people like report them to like a code of ethics board, and that goes up to the Supreme Court of that given state, and then they get dinged or they don't get dinged after an investigation. And it just so happened that this time this guy got dinged specifically because of his repeated comments within the courtroom. And I think generally that's I guess if we are valuing this impartiality, that's kind of like an acceptable loss almost. And if we're not valuing the impartiality, then it's an unacceptable infringement on free speech.
I just disagree that it's impartiality at all.
Okay.
It's simply a personal opinion. Impartiality would have to do with his decision making.
Well,
his bias. All of the cases where he was speaking had nothing to do with the stupid he said stupid shit on a mic is what he did.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But like
that it didn't affect his decision making and it wasn't relevant to the cases, so
but that's part of like the appearance is part of the problem. He made judges look bad.
Impartiality is in his decision making, which he was trained and sort of more or less ordained as a judge to make.
But UD,
First Amendment
UD,
right.
as somebody who coaches people in rhetoric, I would appeal to you that public perception is just as important as what you're actually saying. As somebody who has been subject to plenty of shitposty fucking DGG and VGG mobs.
Yeah, no kidding.
I would tell you that it's not so much. It's not what you're saying; it's how you say it.
However, he's not debating. It's not a Twitch panel. It's not the public. The public don't tune in to watch a court proceeding. He said stupid shit on the mic in his own venue. That I think did a little more than. It was enough that people were like, "Dude, that's it. We're cutting the mic. We're just gonna cut your mic."
Yeah.
You okay over there, Shadow?
So I don't think it's impartiality. I don't think it has anything to do with civil discourse. I don't think there's a code of conduct or a law, and I don't think he gave up his First Amendment rights. I don't think he did any of that. I think he had a track record of doing a lot more than saying stupid shit on the mic.
No,
Something else happened.
No, there is a specific code of conduct for U.S. judges.
Yeah, I know. I'm fully aware of all that.
There is a specific code of conduct, but on the same token,
I train judges, so I know.
Well, exactly. I mean, there's a difference between the judicial canons that judges have to follow on the federal and state level, and then, of course, there is looking at the actual history of how our courts have functioned. So, something that I really wanted to flap my gums about was something called getting borked. That actually is a proper constitutional law term. So, Robert Bork was up for consideration for the Supreme Court of the United States, and he actually didn't end up getting on the bench because he was super outspoken as a conservative. Like, he had written many books, many manifestos. Like, his political opinions were super well known, and that was a point where that was actually weaponized against him for his appointment. So I think that in terms of how the nomination process for justices unfolded, at least on the federal level, like up to that kind of point, it's not that judges have always been forbidden from having a political opinion and expressing it in some way, but it's kind of evolved in how they express it, and whether that political opinion is something that the people, further up the food chain like. So, in this instance, with the Utah judge, I'm not entirely convinced that his suspension was necessarily all that warranted, but our court systems have always been like this, though. We were actually talking about precedents and how they were set in the court system, you know, I gotta say the Warren Court in the 1950s and onwards was actually a really good indication of judges kind of employing a very different opinion to push some positive change through the system, you know, because that was the court that decided Brown v. Board of Education and whatnot. You know, beforehand, you would have justices express in either their majority opinions or their dissenting opinions, oh, well, I feel a certain way, but it just isn't in the public interest for us to decide this way. And in that case specifically, they were talking about desegregation or, you know, eliminating slavery. Like, so, you know, this has always kind of been like a very weird boundary for judges to tread along. And I'll shut up now.
No, that's fine.
Okay, can I speak?
Still not convinced. But
Oh, dude, let me get to you. All right. Go ahead, Shadows.
Okay, so several things. First of all, Bork was a judge. He was a DC Circuit Court judge. He was just not considered when it comes to SCOTUS. Okay, Riverboat Jack, you were saying something
That's
about
what I
like
meant.
billionaires throwing money at like judges for favorable tax policy. So first of all, they're not able to accept public donations. So I don't know what you're really even talking about. Also, I literally have the code of conduct in front of me because I want to get clarification for Lonerbox. By the way, I asked him, he said, if you were part of like an anti-government organization, you probably wouldn't even be considered for the position in the first place. But looking in here, part of Title 28, Section 455 in Part B4, and this is about disqualifying yourself from a case. He knows that he, individually or as a fiduciary, or his spouse or minor child residing in his household has a financial interest in the subject matter. So if you have a very explicit financial interest in a case, you have to recuse yourself. Like if Epic Games was based in Chicago and he had to deal with a case for that, he'd have to rescind that because he knows for a fact that I own stock in Tencent, which owns Epic Games. So like when it comes to cases like that, they're going to recuse themselves because they have to. This is shit they have to disclose.
How
I don't even
aggressively
know
is
what
that
you're-
research though?
So this is.
I mean, I was
this,
about to
this,
say
this-
that's talking
again,
about partiality.
I got called
between
out here.
parties in a case.
I would like to. I'd like to.
Okay.
Kind
I know.
of
I'm sorry.
confirm
Riverboat. Yeah.
or clarify. When I say like a billionaire can throw hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't mean give it directly to judges, but I do mean things like donating to campaigns, or donating to PACs that donate to judges' campaigns, or funding the Federalist Society as one example among others.
Okay, elected judges are very different.
When
now.
we're talking about judges and judging, do you deny that groups like the Federalist Society have been historically an important track to different judicial appointments?
Yes, they are, but they're
Yeah,
literally the only group I can think of.
Well, exactly.
And when it comes to district and circuit court judges, by the way, these people
again,
don't like to run for office. So money
I'm
isn't
clarifying.
an
I'm
influence.
clarifying this, okay, for
Okay,
you,
okay.
because you seem to be under the impression that I was like billionaires coming along with a comically large sack of money to a judge's house and plopping it on the doorstep,
Well, yeah,
and that's
it kinda
not how
sounded
it
like
works.
you were talking about bribing judges.
Yeah, no, that's not what I was saying at all, because it's a much more
Okay.
complicated
Thank you for
system.
clarifying.
But
Um,
but I have a
very
question
funny
for
mental
Shadows.
Yes, Connor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was just asking. So for instance, like you were saying that your dad, which I'm sure he's an honorable man because he knows all about borking and fisting. He's a very intelligent,
He watches this
judge.
channel, so he must be great.
He knows all about all of the technical terms of the legal field. So basically, my thing though is you mentioned the fact that you own a stake in a company. Your dad is an honorable guy. If he came across that company, he would specifically recuse himself because of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what are the auditing mechanisms to make sure that judges are acting this way? Because if you didn't say anything, he didn't say anything, and there's no auditor, then what is the mechanism through which we even catch anybody who is acting in their own interest? Like how do you even catch these people? What's the power, the counterbalance to this power?
Well, so my understanding is my dad actually has something set up technically because, thankfully for him, his accountant is not as much of a boomer as him and actually is good with computers. So basically, he has a system set up where basically any companies that he owns or my mom own as part of like their savings, or me or my brother owns as like a Robinhood account, they put that name up in the system, and if he has a case that pops up, that system will automatically run and let him know, like if it's dealing with a private company, if someone in the family like has a financial interest. And this is true for even my sister, who doesn't even live in the house.
But is this a private system that your dad set up in for his own accountability? Versus, is this something that's actually publicly mandated? Because there might be plenty of people who are not as honorable and don't know about borking as much as your dad. So they just might be doing whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, so I'm with your example, if I say nothing and he says nothing, like if I said nothing, like if I bought a company, if I bought a company, and I said nothing, then it is possible that he could end up dealing with that case. But if I told him about it, which I do, because like my dad, this is a very good value that he's taught me, is that the importance of honesty. I would let him know that I bought that company. I do it anytime I buy.
I'm not attacking the question he's asking about.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. So this is like, so if a cop, like to analogize this to the cop, it's like, oh well, we're just honest and we just do the right thing. Now I'm sure that's true of most people, most honorable people. But I'm saying, like,
for all judges.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm asking, is like, if this accountability system is something that your dad took on voluntarily, then how would we even know the level of like financial corruption or conflict of interest that are involved?
He can update it like anywhere from daily to weekly to monthly, but for every year, every federal judge has to make annual disclosures of their financial interests. So that's required every year.
But are they audited?
Yeah.
What do you mean audited?
So let's say that I'm a judge. I make a financial disclosure that I'm invested in all of these companies. Here's my accountant. Mr. Shadows is my accountant or something like that.
Yeah.
But but I also have other accounts that are Swiss bank accounts or in the Cayman Islands or in different locations or whatever. And I just pull out little chunks of cryptocurrency or something like that. And then I just pull out little withdrawals. I take the mistress out for a nice Cheesecake Factory dinner. We go back to the hotel after getting blacked out on blueberry mojitos. Like that's what I'm saying, is like there's a certain amount of integrity and honesty and honor that I'm sure is a part of their job. But no offense, we're talking about people who were lawyers, which automatically makes them vampiric scumbags in my book.
Wow,
so
I am very offended, and so is
Thank you.
Well, it's okay. Well, hey. Listen, it's not your fault. You just chose a really interesting vocation. So
look, I know that when I went into law school, I was great at humanity.
Exactly.
So...
I get dogged out for being a cop all the time, so you guys can take a little bit of heat.
To respond to your point, though,
dude, I love lawyer jokes. What are you talking about,
dude? But to respond to your point, when it comes to like the Swiss bank accounts or those Cayman Island bank accounts, those would have to you would have to disclose that, and it would be publicly available information. But like they're not audited, like they aren't, but they are required to disclose.
Well, that just sounds like people are as honest as they want to be. That's what that sounds like to me.
Exactly.
Hey.
Okay, let's go to Lunar Box.
Yeah, just to add about conflict of interest and corporate influence, it doesn't need to be that direct. It doesn't need to be direct at all. Like it can be. There's a study from Emory University in this year, found that judges with corporate backgrounds were 36% less likely to rule on behalf of employees. So there's an obvious bias there. That's not a big deal if we have a diverse range of judges. We don't. About 7 in 10 judges on the federal district courts were either former prosecutors or corporate lawyers. So
former
I don't know. Do we vet? Do we?
You said former prosecutors
or corporate lawyers? Yeah.
Okay, that's really common though, because I think someone who's part of the U.S. Attorney's Office would be considered prosecutor, and a lot of U.S. attorneys, have go on to have very tenured legal careers and do a lot. So.
Would you consider that, because obviously not 7 in 10 people are corporate lawyers, would you consider that lack of diversity maybe a problem in terms of like legal interest in favor of corporate workers?
I mean, I don't know how many are exactly corporate lawyers, but if we're going to say half and half, if like 3.5 out of 10 federal judges are corporate lawyers, then sure, I'd say there's a lack of diversity there. But
well, I have a question because this is a really interesting demographic. So you're saying that they're prosecutors. Does this demographic of prosecutors, does that include defense attorneys, or is it literally just like these are state's attorney's office who have worked as prosecutors for extended periods of time, or they're corporate lawyers? We don't like defense attorneys on the bench. Like what's the situation there?
I don't have the details on that. Just I can maybe have a dig through it for a few minutes. No, the gist of this, I mean, the gist of this one, like in the abstract, was just that, that the disproportionate number of judges were ex-corporate lawyers, and then they were much less likely to side with workers.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up is because, like, I obviously hate defense attorneys, but I could understand how my bias would color my worldview. So
I still think that matters a lot too, but that's mainly because I just know that like a lot of sex discrimination cases and a lot of discrimination cases when it comes up to employment are actually a lot more common than most people realize. So I think siding with employees is important. So yeah.
Elvity, thank you for joining us. Nice to have you.
You're welcome.
Hey. So we were talking about, we're on the tail end of this, but still would love to hear your opinion on judges who actively share their political opinions to the public, and whether that should be allowed, should that be something that's punished, discouraged? If you have any thoughts on that.
I think as long as it doesn't prevent them from doing their job properly, I don't really see an issue, unless it's saying really extreme stuff regarding certain cases. For example, if he was working on a murder, there is something that he, of course, should not disclose, or some terms that he should not use. But as long as it's separated from his work, I think it should be fine. Like, because before becoming a judge are individuals, and they still have the right to speak and to talk about their opinions.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, Jack, please.
Yeah, and to kind of like build up on my point earlier that I've made a couple times is I think one of the biggest threats to our legal system when we're talking about the ability of judges and people behind judges to use free speech is the codification of money as free speech, and specifically when we're talking about political donations, or when we're talking about dark money that's largely untrackable, unaccountable to anybody, and when we're talking about like the Federalist Society, I need you all to keep in mind, there's a reason it's like the one that Shadows can think of. It's because it's really the one. It is the pipeline to get into the legal system today. And when we're talking,
kind of like the only one,
and we're talking, when we're talking about it, there are people in there. There are 70,000 people in the Federalist Society, lawyers, judges, etc. And there are people in there who are able to coordinate the doling out of dark money. In fact, there was an expose back in 2019 about a man named Leonardo Leo, and this was published in the National Law Journal, about how he's, as a member of the Federalist Society, he was basically responsible for distributing $250 million in dark money to different judges for campaign purposes, or to make and break careers, to get them PR people, to pay for travel and events, etc., etc. And this doesn't necessarily come to a like direct payments to judges. These aren't direct gifts. They're just facilitating their work. You know, it just so happens that these moneyed groups are paying for an absurd amount of background support for these candidates and fast-tracking them into our judicial process, specifically with the understanding that these candidates are going to support different endeavors, whether they might be pro-trans, they might be anti-trans. It doesn't really matter, because the moneyed interests that are interested in putting $250 million at the disposal of people are interested in getting a return on their investments. They aren't just putting $250 million out into the wild for no reason. And it is the business.
Books like Dark Money were written.
Yeah, exactly. It's the business ends that are really the driving force behind these donations and behind the Federalist Society itself.
I would like to clarify one thing, though, when it comes to money interests who donate to the Federalist Society. So it is true that there are a lot of conservative and libertarian groups.
By the way, I didn't say just to the Federalist Society. I said to dark money groups that orbit the Federalist Society. Because because the Federalist Society is a non-profit, you can track how much money they make. You can't track how much money dark money groups make.
True. So I guess you could say like a Coke associated PAC or something might, give a lot of money. Is that what you're trying to say? Something like that?
Yeah, essentially, members of the Federalist Society have contacts with different dark money groups and are able to coordinate the distribution of those resources.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's why the Federalist Society has a whole list of judges that they would want to put on the Supreme Court. That's where they got majority of the people that are now sitting on there, actually.
90% of Trump's appointees were from a list given to him by the Federalist Society.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's their phone number, and how do I get funded?
Become a lawyer, go to their events. I'm sure someone will approach you.
Shadows.
Yeah, so the point I was going to make
talk
is
afterwards.
what the Federalist Society is most concerned with is like the current state of the legal system, and they want to retain certain parts of it, which So when people donate money to these groups, they're not like directly giving money to the judges. It's helping certain judges and elevating their career if they're part of the society. And it can also impact public policy. So that is the main thing.
So you're admitting. So you admit to everything that she's. I mean, you're agreeing with everything that she's saying, right?
I'm admitting that judges who are part of the Federalist Society and are elevated in their career thanks to their membership of the Federalist Society would have bias towards certain groups. Yes.
So I wanted to make a comment. Then we'll go to Loner Box. I wanted to make a quick comment. It's something you had said previously. About your father saying that he cannot donate to a political campaign.
He can donate to any campaigns under his name.
Yeah, under his name. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
That's that important part. Under his name. Well, that's what those dark money groups are for, right? And I'm not saying your father's done anything. Of course, I don't know anything about your father. But like people who don't want their names out there, right? Who still want to support, go to these dark money groups, right? So like back to what Connor was saying, like where is the actual accountability for these things? Where are the accountability mechanisms? Where, yes, under his name, he certainly can't, your father, but if he so chose, and again, I'm not saying that he has, but if he so chose that he could go to one of these dark money groups and launder his money through there, correct?
Yeah, so they definitely could. But the thing is, I mean, I guess it's very unique because my mom is also not allowed to donate under her name for classified reasons. Most people who are judges, they probably have a wife or a husband who they could, have donate under their name. And as we all know, the max out number for campaigns at a federal level is 10,000. So unless you're like really fucking decked out as a judge, The name thing is probably not going to get in your way.
Yeah, and your son, right? You could get your son could donate for you, right? So let's go to loaner box, and then maybe we'll move on to our next topic.
I was going to answer Counterpoints' question, but I think he's gone. Is he? Or is he just camera off?
I don't know. Counterpoints, is your shirt off? I think the answer is yes. Okay. Damn, we're missing.
I can wait if it's all right.
There.
Oh, here he is. Okay.
What do I do now?
No, I was. They called me, but then I was answering your question from earlier. So good that you're back. Yeah. So to answer that question about the composition, it was the clarification they've given here is it says these studies report that people spending the majority of their career in private practice or as federal prosecutors comprise over 70% of the active federal appellate bench. In contrast, only 1% of federal appellate judges spent the majority of their careers as public defenders or legal aid attorneys. It looks like there's a further breakdown with, say, 35% of the members were corporate lawyers. So I will link you the study in the chat. If you ask me for any more clarification.
Making his way to the bench.
And if you ask me for any more clarification, I will consider it American imperialism. So.
No, but the reason why I brought that up is because so I made a video kind of breaking down or in response to the Destiny video or whatever. They were saying that I was only considering the law enforcement perspective. I was only considering the prosecution side of basically like our judicial system, which I think is like as much as it might be a blind spot for me, I think that's a fair critique. Is that like, hey, you're only considering this thing like everybody's guilty and there's just not enough evidence to prosecute them, and there's just not enough evidence to convict them, whereas a defense attorney's kind of their job is different. So basically from the defense attorney side, the fact that we're even saying a majority of judges are either basically corporate shills like our good friend Bastiat, or they're ex cops like me, prosecutors, people who are trying to put people in jail, then yeah, I could see how that would absolutely bias and color the judicial system in a way that probably isn't fair.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we'll maybe leave it there and move on to our next topic. I think we've pretty much covered this. And thank you, especially to our friend Shadows here for sharing his not quite personal experience, but familial experience.
My expertise in the topic.
Your expertise in the topic. Okay, sure.
You so didn't want to call it that.
Oh, no, it's fine. But yeah, I thank you for sharing that, because that actually was helpful. And like, again, hi, Mr. Shadows and Mr. Shadows. Like, that'd be great. I don't know, that'd be pretty cool if like a federal judge is watching this, right? I don't know. I would love to talk to a judge. Like, I would fucking love to.
Your Honor, I try to be as nice to your son as possible. Please don't beat me up.
Yeah, right. But like, I would love to like talk to a judge one day.
Now, my dad's in his
pick their
50s.
brain.
He couldn't beat up anyone on this panel. Are you kidding? Hey, still looks great for his age, though. So
I'm sure. All right. Well, thanks so much. All right, we'll move on to our next topic, and it's one that I'm actually pretty interested in. And to back to Charles for a second. I got the other topic, but it was like a little too late to make a switch there.
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, but we can save that to the next time you're back on, and we can have that discussion. It sounds interesting. Excuse me. All right. So, topic 2. Vox published an article detailing how people were using Facetune and other online apps to drastically change their appearances. In particular, one woman named Coconut Kitty poses in lewd photos while altering her face to appear as a teenager. Is this a problem? Should this be allowed on social media? Do these face-altering technologies create a toxic environment online? So I saw this story, and I'll put the Vox article in chat so all you others can see this. I thought this was really interesting because of the implications, right? And what should be the limits of what we allow on social media. So yeah, this this woman, and she's one of many, right? And I imagine men also do this, right, to a certain extent. But this woman has taken this to an extreme. So online, there are a lot of people who, like on Instagram, who want that perfect face and look, right? Because there's a value to it, right? There's a value socially in how people respond to your pictures, right? And there's a value economically. If you can grow a big enough account, then you can get brand sponsorships, right? Like there's money to be made here. And so,
And psychologically.
And
especially for
psychologically.
trans people, like who care a lot about like their facial features, especially for male to female, they will care like that jawline. It's it's just stronger in men. So yeah.
So there are all kinds of reasons why, people would change their faces, right? This particular woman that we're talking about, and again, I'm sure there's others who are doing something similar. This particular woman has specifically de-aged herself. She is a woman. She like her regular photos, regular in quotes, look like she's in her mid-20s, and she's like a very busty woman, and she's like posing in very skimpy outfits, but her face now looks like a girl that was like around 16, 15, right? And she has a very popular account, 3 million followers. So there's probably money being made here. Is this a problem? Like, should this be allowed? If not allowed, how would we enforce that? So yeah, I'm really curious what you all have to say on this. All right, I'll start with Riverboat Jack.
Yeah, this is I do find this like a really interesting topic, and I think really one of the underlying problems isn't like the AI face changing technology or like the Snapchat filters or whatever. The underlying problem is the fact that like we as a society fetishize children, and I think we tend not to really want to come to terms with that and do anything about it. But we need to deal with it. We need to deal with that, and we need to figure out a way to, hey, stop fetishizing children.
Okay, all right, pretty strong statement there. Let's go to Shark.
It's really hard to agree with Riverboat Jack. I mean, we do kind of fetishize, if not like children, like a lot of youth. Especially when it comes to women, there's like people always think like the younger the woman, like the better, and like how in society when women get older, they're now treated as like they've lost something. They're not as valuable anymore simply because they're not children anymore, or not barely children. This is something that's been going on for a very long time. I mean, it goes further than just the app itself and like looking like a teen. The thing is, it's kind of hard to determine like, oh, you're making yourself look like a teenager or just making yourself look younger. I mean, I think there's like some obvious problems. I mean, we already have like what, Piper Perry in some of her ads that I haven't seen like in the wild, but just peering off some like Piper Perry ads where she's just like being held by a guy who's like fucking like 6'5" or something, and she's super tiny with the braces and everything. I mean, come on. I think we can all agree that she's supposed to look like, if not a child, like a very, very young person. And the beauty standards that we hold women up to, a lot of the times, lots of guys are not praised for the way that they look, but lots of guys will be praised for having women in their life who are pretty. Like, all you have to do is just have women who are perceived as pretty, who want to spend any amount of time with you for any reason, and all of a sudden, boom, you're like, you're king shit, right? With I mean, we value these things so highly, and with a big market for beauty, it's kind of hard not to play into it if you want to move up in the world. I mean, people who are perceived as prettier are just treated better, period. They just have better lives. We treat them better. And I mean, even as a photographer, I've been taught to accentuate people's body, but I think that's different than what the app does, literally changing it. I mean, when I'm taking a male's picture, there's certain things that I can have him do with his like neck and with his chin to accentuate his jawline. And with women, typically you want to have them do like flowing lines with their arms and limbs to make them look more feminine. But I think that's different than just changing them entirely. And I think we need to change the culture more than get rid of these tools, because the problem will always be there. We'll just have more tools to abuse it.
Thanks so much. Counterpoints.
You're muted.
Okay. Beautiful. Just elegant.
That's beautiful. All right, here we go. So I think everybody brought up some pretty good objections for why this is bad. When it comes to legality, I don't think that you can get rid of these programs any more than you could Photoshop. Photoshop is used for like a variety of things. I think, Facetune, like all that kind of. There's going to be like artistic expressions that you can use. One of the ones that I think is like the face swap app, where you can chop off your face and like put it on a movie, and then like it like blends you perfectly together in order to do that. I think the technology is already out of the box. That being said, I think the way that you combat this is kind of like awareness, education, basically teaching teenagers and young adults, particularly who might feel that social pressure the hardest to compete, to be attractive in social media spaces. Particularly educating them that, like, hey, these Instagram models that you're comparing yourself to, they're probably using some level of photo or video editing software. These people who are living these glamorous lives, Dan Bilzerian is actually the perfect example of this. Oftentimes they are, one, defrauding their investors, and then two, they're investing in social media clout in order to forward their own egos. So since every person under the age of 20 wants to be a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or whatever and never have to work a day in their life, or an Instagram model, we need to educate these people that, like, hey, a lot of this stuff is fake. The stuff that isn't fake is often paid for. Your role models are often selling their souls in order to get advertising click bucks, and you need to consider your own personal value, not against what is perceived to be real, but against what is actually real. And I'll leave it there.
Thanks so much. Shadows.
Oh, perfect. I actually wanted to respond to that because I actually agree with that a lot. I think I was going to say, look at the website we're on. You're lying if you don't tell me that you don't want to watch attractive women who are good at video games. Like, who doesn't want to see that? It's both entertaining and you got a pretty face on your screen. But I will have you know, Connor, I sold my soul to the corporations long ago, so I don't actually have to care about that. So you can shut up. Anyways, but yeah. So when it comes to this stuff, I do think it is interesting. I think, changing the appearance of your face is something that we do a lot. I'm doing it right now by wearing makeup. It makes it look like I don't have acne, when actually I'm a pimple-faced fuck. But no one knows that because I always wear makeup on screen.
We could have guessed. We could have guessed.
Yeah, but I'm saying like makeup is a way of like editing the way your face looks. Like a good example of this is on the LEC. There's a shoutcaster who goes by the name Shocks. She's 35 and she looks like she's in her young 20s. So when it comes to this face editing stuff to make it look like you're a minor, I understand why there are some more ethical or moral problems. But I personally think that if people are paying for these services, like I clicked on the link, and apparently she has a lot of fans on OnlyFans. If that's what they're into, that's fucking weird, and you need to get that checked out, bro. But you know what? I'm not gonna judge. And also, I think that
I think you just did.
I'm not gonna judge too harshly, is what I mean to say. But I think if anything, it probably has a positive benefit, because unfortunately there are people who have a weird thing for wanting to date 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, and guess what? They shouldn't, because that shit's illegal. So if they just get off to someone who looks like they're 15 or 16 and isn't, I think that's a benefit to society. Just saying.
I don't know.
And I'm gonna have to agree with you on one point, of course. I like seeing pretty women play video games. I've been a proud follower of Riverboat Jack for a long time. So All right, let's go to Kevin.
First of all, Shadow, I take severe exception. I am also a very pretty person and play video games. How dare you, young man? But no, in all seriousness though, in looking at this article, my visceral reaction was to cringe a lot because I think just as other people on the panel said, like this isn't very indicative of, people fetishizing youth, which has always been really gross because, first of all, people should date people should date folks who are also adults, or in their age range, just saying. But, on the more important point, we do have an obsession with, as Shark said, having a society where people look, absolutely stunning and beautiful, and that's sort of prioritized. So, there is that, but we're also kind of seeing a worrying trend in the fetishization of youth and fetishization of, looking childlike, which is why, for example, Cuties was such a big controversy on Netflix, some time ago. Was that last year? Am I just having a
It
moment?
was last year, yeah.
Jesus Christ, that
Really?
seems like so
That was
long
2
ago.
years ago.
We
Yeah,
definitely talked about that on this channel when that happened.
2020 was 5 years long.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
straight
The
up.
pandemic just fucked with my brain.
And 2020 is half a year long. Well, 2021.
For real. So I'm just saying, like, as one of my chatters said, what we're seeing now is kind of emblematic of, almost pedophilic tendencies creeping into what we see as, the beauty standard, which I am not about. Now, I think that, the law has kind of helped with this, just because, for example, like, there have been some weird decisions passing from the Supreme Court, like, apparently simulated drawings of, like, children in lewd positions is constitutionally fine, but, actual CP is where they draw the line. Personally, I think all of that should be, CP and not appropriate, but that's a conversation for a different day. So I just think that, when we go in, I think we're just dangerously veering into the territory of fetishizing youth and children specifically, and I'm not down for that.
Universal discourse.
Yeah, is the mic still muted?
Hey, you're good.
Is that okay? I know I did something.
Oh no,
wrong.
no, sorry. Oh, well, you hold on.
You want to mute in StreamYards. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. So hold on. Yeah, we'll keep you muted in StreamYards, and you'll just talk through Discord. So yeah, you're good now.
I got it.
Yeah, you're good now.
You're good now. Yeah, I first saw it and I couldn't stop laughing. I was just like, oh my god, So I wasn't taking it terribly seriously, and I think, I don't know, it seems like the point of contention is that, at least to some people, she looks like the face that she's putting on looks like a teenager's face. I think that might be very subjective, too. So, and I'm not sure if that's exactly why she put the teen overlay on. Oh, that'll get me money, that'll get me views. She's obviously very popular. I think to her that's just entertainment, and she's not thinking at all about, she's just thinking this is what sells. That's the mask that sells. As far as her changing her appearance, well, ordinary makeup and lighting changes everybody's appearance. So it's the same thing. I mean, I don't know what she actually looks like in real life. How much of an age difference is there? And between the fake face and her own face. She certainly doesn't need any help with her body like that. It's kind of weird. But, is it a problem? I think it depends on, well, does that look like a 15-year-old to you? The face, does that look like a teenager's face to most people? Because I don't know if there might be a cultural difference in that. But I still couldn't stop laughing. It was just the way she's like contorted, the way was just extreme and kind of like just ridiculous over the top. But I don't know. I guess that's.
You have not spent the same amount of time on the corners of Instagram that I have. And so that looked, oh,
At
that was
all.
pretty standard.
'Cause-
That was really,
Not at all.
okay. So, yeah.
But I mean, would you, when you subscribe to her or whatever, do you feel guilty that she looks like she's 16? There's a
Well-
bunch of girls with faces like, there's a bunch of boys with faces like that. Does anybody feel guilty when you subscribe to them because they have a pretty young face? To be honest, does it bother you when you support them?
I'm a happily married man. I don't subscribe to that shit.
That's a collective view.
But okay, then we'll go. Let's go to Lunar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this one in particular was that, like, you can see on her Instagram, if you just go scroll down a wee bit, you can see she just gets younger and younger because of the patient. You can tell she's like pushing in that direction, and she did that because she realized that the younger she got or appeared, she got more followers. She now has an OnlyFans with, I think, like 12,000 people giving her $10 a month. So you can figure that out. Like, and I think and I think that's the thing, is just like every something like this comes up, it just, like, what it reveals about people is that, like, because we always put like pedophilia as this kind of like the darkest corner of society where, like, you know, like no one may cross, but then you look online and you find like every single time a creator does something like this, or whether it's Lolicon, like the following is just enormous. And yeah, it's definitely a consequence of fetishization of youth. And I guess maybe the question that comes, and obviously like Facetune, and if social media and even just pre-social media wasn't bad enough for kids and their self-perceptions, particularly young girls, then, you know, this is only making it worse. I don't know if we can get rid of these things, especially like in the name of free expression and all that, if it's all consenting adults, and et cetera. But I think what we can do is maybe just ask questions about how do we exist in this world? How do we stop this from like escalating into like growing someone's fetish, or that can like lead to abuse or something like that? So I know in Japan, I don't know if this is still the case, but it definitely has existed in the past, where if you go to a vending machine in parts of Japan, next to Coca-Cola and sweets and shit, you can buy a pair of underwear that is guaranteed to have been worn by young girls. So, and I don't know, maybe there might be some wing of the gaming streamer community where they might say, well, this is okay if it helps someone's deal with their urges and can curb abuse. It doesn't seem to have. Abuse is going up in Japan just as it is pretty much everywhere else. So I guess maybe sorry?
Is that true that they're used panties? I thought it was just panties.
No, they can be
Worn.
used panties. Yeah,
Worn,
worn.
yeah.
I'm not sure if some. I'm curious.
Don't worry, I'll
That's-
tell you when you're
back-
maybe you're
back-
not. I'll tell you when you're old enough. Don't worry.
Back,
Okay.
back to counterpoints though. I'm just
I'm
for
joking.
a second. No, just back to counterpoints for a quick second. I'm curious if there's like accountability there. Like, are these certified use? Okay, moving on. Sorry, go ahead, Lorna Box. Finish your point.
I'll start Googling.
I don't really like, as far as legal things go. It's really, I don't think like this is really the case for that. It's more just like, I know when Pornhub did that massive ban, didn't they do a thing where if people started searching after Pornhub did their massive like getting rid of a bunch of stuff, they did like a thing where if someone searched a term that could be construed as like looking for youth, like I don't know, I guess they for jailbait or whatever, then it came up with this massive thing on the screen saying like, yeah, we don't have this stuff on our channel anymore. Here are some links if you find yourself becoming seeking this content often and all that stuff. Because I think it's like when you look at people who, you know, if you want your 25-year-old partner to wear a schoolgirl's outfit once in a blue moon, whatever, but like if you're finding yourself constantly, or someone you know is constantly like leaning towards that, you know, like that whatever weird guy on the internet who's bragging about having loads of 19-year-old girlfriends, then yeah, that's like something that people need to start getting involved in. And maybe the bright side to this is that it actually does reveal a lot of tendencies within people that we need to deal with. Doesn't look good.
Okay.
I have to step out. There's something going on here in the place where I'm sitting.
Okay.
So I'm gonna. Is there somebody that wants to sit in my seat?
We'll have
So
to
I
worry
can.
about that
I have
later.
to go
Just,
upstairs.
yeah, don't worry.
Okay.
Have
All
your,
right. We'll see you. I'm sorry.
Bye.
Yeah, sure.
Bye
Bye.
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 See you.
Okay.
See you later.
Oh my
Next,
gosh.
Elodie.
So yeah, so regarding this topic, I just think it's really interesting because a lot of people don't realize it, but Facetunes and filters have affected our society in different layers. When I saw the article at first, like most of you guys, I was disgusted, and then I started researching other studies that were done regarding the effects of Facetune and filters in general. So just to give you a couple data, so since 2013, there has been 80% increase in lips surgery, for example, and there is also uh, wait, I have the data here. I just want to give the right information. Okay, and there is also been a 40 million increase in the number of people that are using Facetune, and some study have shown that more than 71% of the people that post photos on Instagram don't post them without altering their photos or just photoshopping them. So there is this clearly shows that people are starting to be uncomfortable with themselves, with their own body, and with their natural self. So this, of course, is kind of highlights some form of body dysmorphia that is linked to filtering and face tunes. And there was also another study that was done by the Family Medicine Care Association that showed that high schoolers are who suffer from body dysmorphia are more likely to have eating disorders and to commit self-harm because they don't feel confident in themselves. So just not it's not only about pedophilia, it's also that, but it's also the fact that it's affecting the mental health of younger people. We're starting to have this sort of disconnect with themselves and reality, and they're trying to strive for something that's not realistic in a certain way. Not only that, I also wanted to add that Norway has recently um, implemented a new law that requires people that post photos to specify that whether or not the photo was photoshopped. So I don't know if it's going to improve things, but I guess it's a first step towards a better a better way to handle the situation.
Okay. Open to the panel. So we'll go to Shadows and then Shadows, Jack, and then Shark. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of I guess hone in on this because you know this is the Prime K's panel. You know, we go off topic. That's what we do here. Let's go, boys. But you know, Elodie, what you were talking about in the stats you mentioned, you know, it sort of, you know, connects into this larger conversation, which I guess technically isn't off topic because, you know, in the question you said, Prime, do you think this makes a toxic environment for the media? It seems like it seems like generally the panel doesn't have too much of too many different positions on the ethics and morals of face tuning yourself to be below 18. It's more so face tuning yourself to be younger and how that affects younger girls. And anyone who's like into Jonathan Haidt or listen to his interview on the Joe Rogan podcast, I definitely recommend that. Look up JRE Jonathan Haidt. He has a lot of great stats on like how social media affects women. When it comes to younger girls being hospitalized, it has sharply increased in the past decade thanks to social media. I think that's kind of like the topic we're moving towards is like how does this affect younger women and women in general? And I think it generally is very toxic for women, especially when, you know, it seems like even before social media, but even more so now, we just value women on like how young they look in their youth. Like that's why there's that whole meme of like, oh, if you're 30 and not married, you just turn into a fucking witch. Like that's like we overvalue like, you know, women's youth, and you know that's like their market value when it comes to the dating world. is like, you know, their age and how young they look. So
Let's go to Jack and then Shark.
Yeah, to kind of build off of what Loner was talking about earlier, we tend to think of like the fetishization of youth as being kind of like this. Only pedophiles do that, obviously, right? And yet, the most searched pornography terms are often things like amateur, teen. You know, like these are things that people actively search out, and people who aren't pedophiles, or at least who society wouldn't consider pedophiles, but nonetheless, we repeatedly turn to these as like some kind of standard, right? Like the standard that Shadows was just talking about of like, oh, you're 30, well, you're done, you're used up, get out of here, you know? You're in Hollywood, you can only be a witch. You know, you're single, well, you're gonna be a spinster, you know? Like, we have all these different ideas, and the way that Facetune can then come in and heighten these ideas, I think is something that is largely going to be a negative thing going forward. And when we're talking, by the way, when conservatives are talking about, oh, consent is being taught in our schools, they're teaching feminism in English class, like, yeah, the feminism is teaching your kids that they shouldn't want to kill themselves if they're like 15 pounds overweight or something. Like, I happen to think it's probably a good thing if your kids don't want to kill themselves because they happen to be a weight that their favorite Instagram influencer thinks is too big or something like that. Like, and like many people have said on the panel already, we're not going to be getting rid of this technology, but the way that it's going to affect society is something that we have to take into account. And I think that this really calls for a new approach to education, one that incorporates how a lot of people view the world, and specifically view women, and tries to kind of break us out of that cycle, because we need to break out of that cycle. And it has to happen, or more kids are going to get hurt as a result.
Oh, all right. Let's go to Shark, and Connor. I also want to jump in this and mix up here. Go ahead, Shark, and then Lauren.
Sure. I think, like, on the face of it, the law that, like, you have to have a mark on it if the photo is edited, I guess it, like, can help. It can, like, let you know that this photo is edited. I think most people already know that those photos are edited. I don't think anybody goes to, like, New York, to, like, Times Square and then sees, like, a supermodel up on one of the buildings and thinks, yes, this is perfectly she just literally just woke up, rolled out of bed, just wiped the drool off the side of her face and then snapped this picture, and that's what she looks like. I think most people knows, like, a lot goes into it. I feel like even though we know, we kind of internalize it still, or we look at ourselves and we say, like, this isn't something, this is something that I could, like, I could still, like, aspire to that just by myself, with a lot of people just kind of can't, and that's perfectly fine. I think there's something really wrong here when 80 like 60, 70, 80% of people think that they're just, like, super ugly. Now, some people say that I have low standards, okay? And I think I have perfectly fine standards, but I think most people that I know and most people in the world aren't really ugly. I think people could have, like, a bad hair day, bad skin day, like, and get better clothes that not even, like, lose weight, just get clothes that kind of fit them. And most people would look very, very well typically, but we just don't really believe that in ourselves. And lots of people are talking about women, and I'm tired. I'm sick of it. All right, let's talk about men. All right. So when it comes to like men feel this a lot. Thank you. Men feel this a lot too, and I know some people try to deflect when we got to what was it, the like dad bod era. But even dad bod era, there's like a certain body type in there, and it's very narrow. And like outside of that, if you're like 15 pounds over dad bod, you're a chunkster. All right, you're just they post your fucking picture on Reddit, and all the comments are chonky, chunkster, big boy, right? I mean, when it comes to this, I really feel, and like not even to talk about all the men in Hollywood who have to live up to the superhero body type and go on like binging and go on really unhealthy drugging and exercise routines that destroy their bodies and metabolisms, and lots of guys try and follow in those footsteps, or think that like you have to be ripped and you have to be completely ripped and look like Chris Evans to like attract any girls at a bar or anything, when most guys really don't have to look like that at all. These standards perpetuate themselves in our society a lot. I really feel like we have to change the culture around just the way people look and valuing looks as much as we do before we get to the root of this problem necessarily. And also we need to stop, listen, here's my hottest take. We need to stop treating hot people well. I'm sorry. They get it so good. They get it so good already. People already treat them more seriously. People like them more. They think that they're like more kind. They get like lesser prison sentences. Being pretty is privilege. And you guys need to follow my footsteps. And when you notice, all right,
this is the hard truth.
If you think that someone is cool or like super interesting, think to yourself, are they actually, or are you just attracted to them? All right. And are you attracted to them, or do you just want to be them? Questions that you need to ask
Go
yourself.
off, King.
People who look good like shit, so they feel like us every day. All right.
Okay, look, I don't know why you're trying to bust up my shit. Look, being pretty.
Okay, buddy.
Look, look. Like I understand it must be hard being outside the club, right? But it's really nice in here. And don't try to fuck it up for the rest of us, all right? So let's go to.
Can I just say that is super based?
Eyes, Prime.
And Shark, you are super based and very funny, and I understand why Sanso likes you so much.
Thank you.
Connor Loner and Kevin. Do you want to talk to us about Uppity?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Shark was saying. Just when he said that it's obvious that these billboards, the people that are in them, did not wake up like that. The thing is, the main people that are affected by face tuning and filters are children and teenagers, and they're really easily impressionable. I remember when I was younger, I literally thought that Anna Montana was blonde. I thought that she was just the way she was, and I remember starting extreme diets, trying to lose weight as young as the age of 12, because I would just see all those models and I would think that they were like that. It's not, it's true that when you get older, as you become an adult, those things start becoming obvious, but when you're a kid, it affects you. And I, like, personally, I don't represent all women, but I still have some of the trauma of all the dieting and all the things I would do to myself to reach those unrealistic goals.
Yeah. I want to back up. I want to back up LVD a little bit here. But first I'm gonna do something. Listen, I used to be hot. Okay, I don't think I'm hot anymore.
Oh, you're still hot.
You're extremely
hot.
You're very handsome guy. Okay, good work fishing for compliments, Jesse.
You're still hot. Half my chat thirsts for you when you come on screen.
Yeah, you're a very attractive man, you know that.
All right, fine.
This is what I'm saying.
But my personality is dog shit.
No, we agreed.
I agree. We agree.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to say, because my looks are fading and my personality is ass, I need something else, right? Like, you have to, and this is what I would encourage young people, is you need to have something besides looks. You have to have something besides, just aesthetics or working out or fitness or something like that. Fitness is important. Taking care of yourself is important. Self-care is important. But maybe try having a personality, because I don't have a personality except for yelling on the internet.
You like Warhammer. That's a thing.
Yeah, my personality is Warhammer, history, and being a fucking dork who yells at people.
Yeah,
I know that's true. Yeah, I understand.
I understand that's personality.
yeah, I understand that's charming to some people, but it is not charming to a lot of people in my life. So, so my point is, you have to have something that you can hold on to. And the thing that I will have until senility grips me is basically like studying, reading, history, like all that kind of stuff. These are all things that, like, no matter what kind of person you are, you should basically back it up. And also something that I'm trying to do, because I am terrified of getting older and dying. I am just trying to think of, who do I want to be when I'm 30? Who do I want to be when I'm 40? Who do I want to be when I'm 50, 60, 70, 80? And who were the people that I knew in that age category who were cool as fuck, who I wanted to be? And that's what I would say, is to try to encourage young people. Your life does not end when you turn 21. Your life doesn't end when you turn 30, supposedly. So basically, like, maybe start thinking about these other things that might be not as important now, but will be important throughout your life. And then what I wanted to respond to Shark Zero a little bit about is, I understand a lot of people understand that this is edited photos and videos, but I think this should borderline be like media literacy classes in like middle school or high school, literally to educate people that, like, hey, the things that you're looking at are fake. Because I'll tell you how I figured out when I was, definitely above 18 and looking at pornography. I'll tell you how I figured out that the pornographic actresses were pornographic actresses when they were in college settings. It's because I kept seeing the same girls in different videos. And I was like, they must be really aggressive about their amateur career in porn. And then turns out that they were just professional actresses. So no, like, and my parents didn't tell me anything about sex. I was raised by Christian conservatives. I wasn't, and then also I wasn't told anything about intelligence, developing a personality, caring about things besides looks. So we kind of have to assume that teenagers are being told nothing, because even if like 70% of them are being told something, maybe 30% are being told nothing. And that's where I think we should approach this. And sorry, last point. I think the more productive thing to do is, people are going to be into weird shit, and I don't think we can police this technology. I think the more important thing is, how do we make sure that our kids and teenagers are not as fucked up as we are, 10 to 20 years from now? And that should be the focus.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here, and after that we'll go Loner, Kevin, and Shadows. So yeah, I thank you for that last line, because it seems like we're floating far away from the topic, and I actually really want to focus in on this. So again, and it's not just, so the article that I put in chat, and I'll put it in chat again for the rest of you who may have come here later on. The article I put in chat starts by talking about this woman who specifically made herself look like a teenager with this, giving her the face of a teenager anyway, with this technology. And then if you scroll further down that article, it talks about both black fishing and Asian fishing, right? So black fishing meaning white people pretending, or sometimes Asian, but like white people pretending to be, or taking on black characteristics, right? And doing it for some sort of social cred. And then, of course, being able to walk away from all the consequences of being black in America, right? And the same thing with Asian fishing, the exact same thing.
As a gay black man, Obama has done nothing for me. Does anybody remember that fucking meme?
So true.
No, it was a 50-year-old white conservative. He forgot to change his accounts, and he was like, as a gay black.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, but no. So exactly, yeah. But like, I want to hone in on why this in particular, this making yourself younger, is problematic, right? Like, are we saying that a person wanting to appear younger in general is a problem? Because bringing up makeup, like that was brought up before. I mean, people will actually cover up their wrinkles, right? They have anti-aging cream, right? That they sell fucking constantly on the internet, and like, oh, we got this new breakthrough formula. No, you don't. It's like, like this is like big business to look younger. Now you can say, of course, that society is pushing these people to look younger, and we don't want that. But like, it's kind of just accepted that it is what it is. And so this time, this person is just taking up to the next level, right? Rather than simply relying on makeup to do what was done before, right? Doing a simply more effective job with
No,
digital technologies.
No.
Why?
No. Like I think there's a big difference between being like, hey, I use makeup to make myself look a few years younger. Between that and like I am explicitly doing this because the market forces around me are demanding like women who look like children. Like
Teenage porn.
and so I am going to make myself look like a child in order to tap into that market. I think that there's a big difference between I want to look younger, and I think the real problem here is that there is an underlying colossal market for people who look like they're underage. That's the problem. And like you can criticize the fact that we also live in capitalism because you're trying to make a buck.
Oh God, you're blaming capitalism.
You're just
for the
you're just
poor
trying
now?
you're just trying to live, and this is a market that you can access.
Degenerates, and
But
you're talking about
noises.
But the main issue is that there's this very large subsection of our culture that is willing and desperate for women who look like they're children. And I think that there is something there's a big difference between shaving a few years off and making yourself look like a child.
It's just hold
For
on,
people
hold
to
on.
masturbate.
I know your hands are up. Don't worry, I'm going to go to you. So we got time. Is it just where those years land, right? So like a woman in her 20s making herself look more like a teenager, right? Like through makeup, right?
Can I make it weirder by bringing up the Brit bongers?
I have no idea. 1 second. But like, yeah. So is it like? So is it just where the years fall, right? Like you can't go past this certain year when in appearance?
I think as a society we've kind of established that you shouldn't pursue children, right? Like we could you can definitely say it's an arbitrary line. We could make the age of consent like 25 because that's when the brain
I don't want to
is
have
finished.
age of consent. Stop.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You are bordering right up on it, friend.
All I'm pointing
The
out.
only AOC I want to talk about is incongruous.
All I'm pointing out
this
is that
this is a person that is 18, right?
Mhm.
And or is above 18. And there are all kinds of ways that you can look more attractive within this market, right? This market based on looks, right? Like this woman may have had breast implants, right?
Here's the
But
issue.
hold on. So she may have breast implants, right? That's one way of looking attractive, right? That's a way of unnaturally changing your appearance, right? And there is a monetary value in that. But like it's more accepted part of society. Now maybe it shouldn't be, but it is. So deciding to like digitally age yourself, like that's if that is something that she finds value in, right? Then what's wrong with that? Go ahead, finish your point, Jack.
I don't think there's anything wrong with her individually doing it. The main issue is the fact that there is a huge market demand for it of people who will literally make her a millionaire because she is able to reliably pass herself off as underage. Like, I don't think that's the real problem, right? The fact that we live in a society that sexualizes children to such an extent that is just a huge market because they can't get their kicks any other way.
Let's go to a loner box, then Kevin, then Shadows.
I'm going to try and keep this relevant to what everyone was saying. Might not be, but where the fuck do I start? There's so much to say about it. Okay, so I think there's definitely a reason that, like, the whole fetishization of youth in particular, like, we all know this is much more of an issue with women than it is with men. I just turned 30 a couple of weeks ago, so I'm officially a geezer, and I don't feel my life falling apart. You know, the women in my life are like, oh, well, you're 10 years off of the sexy age, you know, so, yeah, amazing. But But the thing with people mentioning capitalism, like there is something very valid in that, is that the reason this kind of pressure to look young probably weighs upon women is because these decisions and beauty standards come ultimately from like top down in terms of culture and media. And it just happens to be that a lot of the culture and media is run and produced in the image of men. So that's kind of why you get the whole pressure on like, and if you take that to a further extreme, if you go to the idea that capitalism is about compound rates of growth, then that's why planned obsolescence used to just be light bulbs. Now it's everything. Then the pressure to buy your way into looking younger would increase over time because the market needs to keep on expanding. So that's why if you're a woman, it's always like, well, first of all, you've got all the different kinds of makeup and eyeliner, and the body types keep changing. One decade you're too thin, next decade you're too fat. Fucking nipple placement, all this, like, it just goes so far. You've got to put your goo on at night when you rub yourself with the moisturizer, and this is like, and then you've got to worry about as soon as you get to 30, then you're reaching over a hill. And contrast that with men, and it's like, what would the equivalent to that be? Like, here's a razor that's called Gillette Fusion Blade Nitro Stealth Power. Like, really, and I don't know, like, drink beer because you're already cool, I guess. So, I mean, there is like, it's not just a case of feminism. It's maybe a case of like anti-capitalist feminism, because I suppose maybe the alternative could be, maybe we need more female porn producers and beauty CEOs, or maybe, but that pressure to keep on expanding these artificial needs is still there. And I think maybe something that brings an economic system that doesn't have to be anti-capitalist. It can just be more equally controlled by men and women. That can, because this isn't as much of an issue nearly as it is with for men as it is for women.
Well, let's go to Kevin and then Shadows.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, this whole discussion definitely goes, like, this whole discussion definitely does split into, the whole point of like fetishizing youth and appearing like a child, and then also like the extremes of how our beauty standards kind of force us to try and look a certain way. Like, to get a little personal, my partner is a plus size lady, and what I've noticed since dating her and then being married to her is just the fact that in terms of how society treats larger women versus larger men, there's definitely a double standard there, just based on, the beauty standards that are applied to women versus the beauty standards applied to men, and what society expects of them. And in terms of, applying those double standards to how we fetishize youth, it's just kind of weird that in some respects, and I don't mean to be too reductive, so please forgive me if I'm a little reductive here. It's just weird that, for the longest time, in terms of fetishizing youth, that came in the form of basically women needing to look like teenage boys in terms of body type almost. Like, very thin, not really having that many curves, and, now we actually value the appearance of literal children as something in society. And I mean, I could throw in like anime tropes, like, hey, come on guys, that's not a little kid that you're sexualizing, it's a 9,000-year-old dragon, please. But it's the same kind of thing, honestly. Like, it's just so bizarre. And I mean, I haven't really had a whole lot to add to this topic, I'm sorry, but there's only so much I can really say about it.
Go to Shadows.
Okay, so I want to...
Shark.
Wait, am I unmuted?
No, Shadow. Yeah, we hear you. Shadows,
okay.
and then Shark.
Okay, so I wanted to respond to Riverboat and Lonerbox and both of you. So I don't remember what it was exactly you said, Riverboat Jack, but something something of the point you reminded me of an infamous meme of the so-called Queen of Twitch. I think something that's really important when it comes to like influencers and Instagram models is like being honest and like telling people how like they actually look without makeup. Like I know Pokey got like a lot of shit when she got that Get Ready With Me stream. Wanna know what I thought when I saw that immediately? Queen. I don't even like her content. Her content's kind of stale. I can find tons of other pretty women who play Valorant on this website, okay? Not that interesting. But you know what? I will always sum for her when people give her shit for that, because it is so important to let younger women know, you know, who watch these people like her, like Quarter Jade. It's so important for them to like do Get Ready With Me streams and let them know, hey, this is kind of an illusion. We don't always look like this. So that's something that's really important. And then Loaderbox, I think you made a really good point.
What were you responding to that I said?
I don't know, something about your one of your points, like totally sounded like it was going in that direction. So I just wanted to make that point.
Okay.
I just think it's really important for like. I mean, actually, honestly, I hope you do one someday. You should do a Get Ready With Me stream. I'm sure there are tons of people who would be interested in looking at, like, you know, also the brands you use. That's another cool thing. You can, like, kind of shill for companies you like. But Lonerbox, I think there's a really good quote that summarizes what you're saying when it comes to men, which is Frank Sinatra once said, men age like fine wine. And I kind of liked what you were saying up until you said the anti-capitalist thing. You lose me you will lose me and so many others when you make feminism anti-capitalist. Like, I am a proud male feminist, but do not make it anti-capitalist. Please do not. There are also optical problems with that, but I'm not going to get into that. Just don't do it. You lose people when you do that shit. Please don't. Please don't.
I'm going to say what I think is right rather than what I think is optical. I'm sorry.
Wait, do you think beauty standards have
You can
nothing
make an
to do
argument
with a
if you'd like.
capitalist motive?
Do you think that fucking hold on? Do you think that socialists don't like young women?
No.
I mean, look
I'm
at
not.
Bob.
Okay,
I
look.
mean, if I look at Twitter, there's a strong preference for cat boys.
Yeah.
But it
Okay,
does
so-
seem like young women are also on the table.
You'll have to excuse the gamer moment. Well, I don't even know what you call it. What you just did was a tu quoque fallacy. You call that hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is not the same as being wrong. Make an argument to this statement, okay? Capitalism goes towards markets, whatever sells best. Insecurity, and I would lump fetishization of youth as part of that insecurity. Is a massive market. It's addictive. It's expensive. It ropes you in. It keeps you coming back. It makes a fuck ton of money. I don't really know if it's a market you could regulate by the state. So I don't know like what. I would suggest democratize the market in some way. I don't have a concrete policy answer to that in particular, but I'd say it's something that it can democratize it in terms of production and in consumption, maybe. But if you have a, what would how do we do that? How do you reconcile it?
Maybe if workers at ad agencies and modeling agencies had some say in how their products were created, we would have a different set of beauty standards, more reflective of the workers who are working on these products, rather than the individuals at the top who only care about the profit.
Yeah, but like it seems like woke cap. Anyways, hold on.
So, still don't want to get too far from this topic because we're gonna get.
Yeah, I don't want to put this into me.
I need to.
Okay, look,
wanna
Shark
get
has been waiting.
stockpiled.
Shark, go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So, to my point, back when it comes to laws surrounding it, I think now if your argument is more like, hey, like highly edited pictures and videos and stuff of people who are edited to have like perfect skin and the perfect body or whatever shouldn't be marketed towards children, I'll absolutely say that. But
Oh, hell yeah.
When it comes to these sorts of laws, I think you're putting the cart before the horse here to think that like this is going to just or like teaching kids at school. I think we should have media literacy, period. But if you're saying like adding, like being able to deduce, like this probably isn't what this person normally looks like if you were to walk up to them in like a Starbucks line on the street, that's perfectly fine. What I'm saying is that There are caution warnings on bikes. There are warnings on medicine. There are warnings when you open up a certain sites that start with P and start with X. That that say, hey, this is not made for kids, and also this is going to hurt you. That doesn't stop people from hurting themselves with it, or like looking past it, and still like taking that in as like face value. Well, what I'm saying is, to get to the core of this problem, this is a much more societal problem. And the loner box's point, yeah, I mean, like the male gaze plays a really big role into this. But just my thing is, just even if these places were to be like more democratized, I still wonder how much of these people would want to play into those narratives anyways, if it's still like a market to be able to make the most amount of money. Because if you have like a modeling company and you make more money when all of your models look younger, I still think you'd still probably have a preference towards getting those younger looking models in. Anyways, I really feel like it's much more of a ground level issue to deal with, like getting people to be able to love themselves like as they are, than more of like a policy standpoint. I really think it comes down to education.
Well, yeah, a policy or legal standpoint isn't going to fix everything. So I definitely agree with you there, Shart. It's just not something that is super practical if you just try to legislate away an issue. Because at the end of the day, we have like decades worth of precedent from media, you know, and from social expectations as to what, you know, people want, or people, well, I guess what society has conditioned us into wanting to see in media. So, you know, it can't just be a legal or legislative thing that we have to push. We have to also push, you know, some sort of like cultural reform in that respect. So I agree 100%.
I love cultural reformations. You know, I'm a leftist, so
fucking
You know,
okay.
You know, I can't help but note.
fucking kill me during the cultural reformation.
Kind of seems like we're talking about environmental factors that might be,
Honor, I will
say,
keep you
heavily
as
influenced by marketing. In a capitalist society, I don't know. Maybe this all ties together somehow in a coherent worldview. If only we could have that conversation.
Okay, so you guys, I don't know. Maybe you guys just don't want to talk about this, but like I really want to focus in on this subject because I think there's a lot to it. One, there are women. Going back to the actual topic, there are women who look a certain age, right? Who appear to be younger than they are. Literally, no one knows how old I am. Literally, no one knows. People have been guessing for the year and change that I've been on air, and no one knows how old I am. Right?
27.
There you go. You made it. But like, and so right, like, is it wrong for like who hasn't digitally altered herself to market her? Like, if this was a woman who looked exactly like she did, Facetune not involved, right? Would there be something wrong with her fetishizing, right? Like using her sexuality as a woman that looks young like that, and they definitely certainly do exist. Is it wrong for them to sexualize stuff? Do they not get to be able to do what other women do? Because it might titillate a certain market. Go ahead, Connor.
So, is it wrong for middle-aged women to basically sexualize themselves in a way that makes them look like teenagers? So basically, I would say that this isn't a supply side issue. I would say this is a demand side issue. And basically, the reason why we think that, and by the way, my Britbonger point is still going to stand. I think the age of consent in the Commonwealth is 16. Pretty fucking sure. So the standards in America and the standards in the Commonwealth are not the same. So if there was a 17, the way that, like, I don't know how Britbonger culture is, but if they look at 17-year-olds the way that we look at 19-year-olds, that's fucking terrifying. Anyways, so the fucking point is that the demand side problem is the real problem. Because when you're looking at teenagers, even if they have
tig old bitties and big old honkin' dongs and muscles and all that bullshit. The problem is not so much physicality. The problem is mental maturity, mental and emotional maturity. So basically what we're creeped out by, what we have been creeped out by for the past half hour without being willing to address it, is grown folks looking at people who look like they're mentally and emotionally immature and saying, I want to fuck that. I think I need to remind you that in the 19th century, people were basically banging each other at 15, having 3 kids, and then dying of the black lung by 22, all right? We are all geriatric fucks by 19th century standards. So that's where I'm saying, like, the reason why I didn't want to focus on, like, the technology is because it's sticky, because we start to, like, legislate morality, there's some legal purposes for it, like, all that kind of stuff. The reason why I wanted to focus on educating teenagers is because I think they're the real victims here that could potentially be manipulated and fucked over by our creepy societal standards. When it's talking about controlling the impulses of adults, Piper Perry, as soon as somebody said Piper Perry, that fucked me up, because I know who she is. She looks like a fucking teenager. She looks like she's 15. She's probably in her mid-20s right now. The reason why that's creepy is because we don't want to think about adults trying to fuck mentally and emotionally immature people. And that's people are fucking evil. I don't know what you want to do. Like, I try to control human evil as best I can, but I don't think it's possible.
I don't know who this Piper Perry is. I have no idea.
Yeah, definitely don't Google her.
Okay. Sure. But she's a woman who appears to be younger than
she looks like she's 15. Is. She's in her mid-20s at this point.
Yeah, she's
okay.
She's an adult actress, and her whole thing is about being very small. She has braces. Usually she has like pigtails on, or like in a schoolgirl outfit. So yeah, her whole thing is like looking like she's like between like 15 and 19. Yeah, underage. Like,
so kind of like the reverse of Courtney Stoddard.
Courtney Stoddard, yeah, Stoddard. You mean yeah.
I mean Stoddard, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. So, okay, I'll leave that there for now. I'll get some other people in. Let's go to Shadow and then Lorna.
2 points. First of all, Connor, to your, I guess I missed your Britbonger point. First of all, fuck you for insulting the motherland. Second of all, there are also several states in the U.S. who I know have the legal age of consent at 16.
Oh, right here in Kentucky.
Kentucky's one of them. North Carolina is one of them. Washington is one of them. I know, like, a governor candidate got in trouble because he did some shit with this 17-year-old girl. That's an example of a state where they view 17-year-olds as 19-year-olds. So don't give me that cultural relativity shit, okay? It's different across different states. But also, just to bring up a bigger
You lucked
point,
out, Loner Box. You lucked out. We almost had you in a corner.
Well, I actually was about to I remembered something Loner Box said in his opening statement about like how people who do lolicon stuff like have big followings. Like, I know Prime wants to hone in on this, but I don't see the difference of like editing your face to look like you're younger as the same shit as like Megumin. And for the non-weeaboos out there, Megumin is a anime character who's supposed to be like 1,000 years old, but she looks like she's fucking 12. And she's like a witch, so that's how she fucking gets away with it, because some magic shit or something. It's same thing in video games. Like Zoe, the champion, it looks like she's 5, but she's also like 1,500 cosmic years or some shit. So, I mean, I guess the question is like, do we see that stuff the same? And is there anything wrong with like lolicons who are hypothetically 1,000 years old? Thanks.
I think that's fucking CP. I just think that's CP for sure.
Really?
I think it should be banned
100%.
then. Like,
Yeah.
it's legally treated in the same way.
Yeah,
I
like
think it should be
maybe,
legally
sure.
treated the same way.
Oh boy.
Even if it's
I think
I do need to
animated.
clarify. Megumin is not 1,000 years old. In the show, she's 14. So.
oh no.
Wait, she is?
Yep.
Wait. Who am I thinking of then? I'm thinking of another.
You're thinking of 1,000 others. All right, so let's go.
Thanks, Japan.
Let's go to Loner Box, then Jack and Shark.
Yeah, I wanted to answer a couple of your questions. I think the question about the UK is the age of consent is 16, but there is like a legal gray area around that because technically your age of adulthood is more considered. Wait, am I muted? Is that just yeah?
No, we can hear you.
No, we hear you.
Yeah. So yeah, the age of consent is 16, but there's a legal gray area over whether the age of adulthood is 18. So that's why at least once a year, some dumb fuck primary school teacher ends up in the papers for deciding to fuck one of his 16-year-old students. And, you know, he goes up and goes, oh, I don't know, the age of consent, you know, but yeah, he still gets in trouble. So rightly so. And I guess, I don't know, when it comes to that thing about like, with what people should like be educated to value. I think Shark and I think a couple of other you guys mentioned that whole thing about substance over beauty. And I think the thing is, I think everyone agrees with that. Like we all think that like I don't know if you're looking through like a dating app, you've got someone on one side who ticks all the physical boxes, but then you've got someone else who maybe has a few imperfections, but they're really good at playing the piano, or they can make you laugh and shit like that. And it's like you go for the latter. You know, it's just like you can develop a better emotional connection. And
Depends on what you're looking for and when you're looking for it. That's the thing, though. You're acting like that's a one size fits all thing.
I would even say this is just personally, but just like even when it comes to like fucking about like promiscuity, I still prefer the latter. It's just like whatever. That doesn't really matter. But I think with that idea that most people do think that, like we all, even people who are properly sucked into this whole like dysmorphia and like constantly like worrying and like crippling anxiety about their looks and everything, they do know, if you'd ask them if like substance and all that is more important, they would say yes. You know, the same way that in my town, every other person like probably drinks too much. They all say they want to drink less, but then you go outside, every other fucking building in the city center is a bar. All your friends are drinking, and then it's just like, so as far as education goes, I feel like a lot of the work is kind of, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but most people, I think in their heart of hearts already have that like angel on their shoulder saying that this kind of stuff is not good for us. It's just that society, I won't use any triggering words to cause any rumpus, but society is going to constantly produce that devil on the shoulder that even when we know it's wrong is going to get the better of us. So I think there needs to be some kind of answer to that as well.
Listen, leftist Twitter, you just heard Lonerbox. Stop horny posting on Maine. Start posting tweets of substance. That's what
I fucking hate leftists. Don't worry.
Let's go to Jack and then Shark.
Yeah, I think that it does go beyond like just a need for education. We're talking about like reforms on a lot of other different subjects that a lot of people don't necessarily think about a lot, but are ingrained into our society. For example, fun fact, it's still legal to marry children in 46 states. You can get married to a 12-year-old in 46 states in the United States of America.
Problem?
And if you think, wow, well, that probably doesn't happen very often, between 2000 and 2018, 300,000 children got married to adults.
What?
Yep.
100,000.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that. I'm sorry. Say that again.
300,000 children got married to adults between the year 2000 and 2018 in the United States.
Is that data verified?
Jesus.
Yeah, there are
fucking
organizations dedicated to getting these children out of their marriages.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
So like when we talk about like the fact that there's this underlying market for this, like I've seen people in chat talking about like, oh no, they're just pretending to be 18 years old. Yeah, I mean that's why we have entire categories of pornography called like barely legal, like don't pretend like if it was legal to sexualize literal children that there wouldn't be a huge market for it, because I think that's horrifically naive. And so we need to do something on structural levels to discourage the sexualization of children, whether it is combating conservative ideals that say it's okay to marry children, regardless of your religious background. By the way, this happens in all kinds of religious backgrounds, not just like any of the big ones you might be thinking of. But we need to also take on the other structural things in our society that encourage, as Loner Box pointed out, the production of the devil on our shoulder that is effectively sexualizing children to a large base of people.
So, hold on. I want to focus in on this, and then after that we'll go to Shark and Kevin. I'm going to focus in on this. So, this is why I don't know exactly. Now, I want to clear, my feelings on this are like, I haven't really been expressing my feelings on this. I've been just trying to dig into the subject, right? But if you bring up the barely legal category, which in porn, which is a big one, right? Like, what is to be done here, right? Like, I don't know what the prescription here should be. So, if we establish that the age of consent is 18, right? And we're not having age of consent debate. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
Like, it's established 18. Good, fine. Then there are going to be people who enter into adult industry at 18. And is it simply that we can't have a category that simply organizes them? Like, they should just be like interspersed in all the other categories? Is that all we're saying we're trying to do, right? Because at some point you enter, unless you're saying that we need to raise the age of the age of being involved in the sexual industry.
Well,
like, what is the solution here?
So what I'm saying is we need to be willing to tackle a lot of the like systemic and structural elements of our society that are leading to the creation of this underlying I guess demand for this product, you know. And there are things we can do to that end, like for example, like we can take, it doesn't necessarily mean getting rid of like the barely legal section or whatever, but it does mean stuff like, hey, maybe we do need to take a stand on these fringe issues about like child marriage. Maybe we do need to reevaluate what is healthy and acceptable in our society to use as marketing materials. Maybe it does mean, we have to limit different structural things in our society that create the overwhelming demand for this young demographic.
Okay. Let's go to.
Can I make a quick point on that?
Is it going to be quick, or is it going to be Connor quick?
No, it's actually going to be quick. So I think Riverboat Jack, optically speaking, the fringe issue of child marriage is actually really important. I think of every single time a conservative brings up the Muslims and like all the problem they're supposedly going to bring, like, well, what did that start marrying 15-year-olds? You should be like, we already have that. We haven't banned that. Why haven't you banned that? Why haven't you gotten rid of child marriage? I think that's something that you should like definitely do, and like everyone should hammer on.
Yep. Republicans keep child marriage legal. Just saying.
That's true. That's true. Let's go to Shark and then Kevin.
Yeah, not only do they keep child marriage legal, but also they fight so strongly against proper sex ed. Like one of those things, like children actually learning what consent is and what's happening to them is one of the best ways they can get themselves out of an abusive situation. And it's really wild. They always keep that child marriage, and they always make sure those kids don't know what consent is. Really, it's so curious. But
it's another great example.
Great example. To the point that like we can know that that the person that we're talking about, maybe just their beauty isn't like the only thing, but their looks is a very large part of them. And we're not necessarily talking about like who is the best person. We're talking about who looks the best and who you want to look like, who you want to be. And when it comes to that, these sorts of like modeling sort of like practices that we're doing now, advertising practices like sex sells, like overwhelming these people go to a certain demographic, and then it's kind of like a feedback loop towards all we see who are like held up as the most beautiful people in society are the ones who look the youngest, and so we start to want to be that sort of thing that people have on their minds, of like the most beautiful person. When so I do think that these technologies, they do actually, they help perpetuate a toxic environment, but they didn't create the toxic environment. We did, and that we could just be like male gaze and like guys at the top. We could be just like society in a whole, but it is we still at the end of the day. And I really think that one thing that to your question, like Prime, like because I'm not sure if people tackled it too hard. Like, is it okay for like a younger looking woman to be in like adult or like modeling? It reminds me a lot of this one god awful tweet, just like seventh circle of hell tweet, that's like guys who like petite women are pedophiles. And so this basically means that if you're a girl and you have like A cup titties and you're like small, means that you can't have any guy like you, because that means they're all pedophiles and they need to be thrown away or something, which is ridiculous. Like, whether you're like giga titty or like zero titty, I mean, I still think that you can be beautiful, right? That's perfectly fine. But I don't think it's necessarily, I think we kind of have to cut a difference between just finding people who could look younger but are still adults as pretty and holding them up as the pinnacle, or like being so far over to like being the pinnacle that it, like, for all intents and purposes, it basically is.
Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, can you hear me?
Sorry, I was having a massive brain fart.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I have nothing else to add with that Shark and Riverboat Jack already haven't knocked out of the park, honestly. Like, they're so pogged that they sent this topic straight to the moon.
Love you, Chief.
So yeah, I'm sorry.
Did you not know? Did you forget what you were gonna say?
Oh, I didn't raise my hand. I was just flailing wildly.
Oh, okay. Okay, so never mind. All right then. Okay.
Sorry.
I think.
Oh, good.
I think Elvady wants to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something regarding the question you were asking to River. So for the barely legal porn category, I strongly think that teenagers should not be in that industry. Like, it should be at least 20 and up, and just to make sure, because when you're a teenager, your brain hasn't developed yet, you're still immature. Like, honestly, there's not much difference between an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old. So I think perhaps raising the age for porn actresses could help.
That could help, sure.
Fucking based.
And porn actors.
Yeah,
Damn it.
of course. And of course.
Don't leave my boys out of this.
Yeah. Oppress men.
Yeah.
So
Damn
true.
it.
We have it coming.
Nah, I'm fucking kidding.
But
But
yeah,
I'm down.
yeah. My larger point is that, like, well, I agree in terms of like demolishing like concepts like child marriage. Absolutely, 100%. Let's get that done like tomorrow. But that is like not like the issue at hand, right? Like, I mean, I can see how it's related. Like, yeah, I'm fetishizing children, but like the fact is, you'll have 18-year-olds or whatever, right? You'll have even women in their mid-20s, or maybe even older, who happen to look like teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And just like with like the examples that Shark was saying, right? Like, there are people with petite bodies.
Yeah.
They are going to exercise their sexuality just like anyone else, and like I just don't see how like we demolish this, like that the barely 18 category being this huge problem that needs to be demolished, and how do we do that? Like, I think that's just like impossible. Like, there's an age to enter these things, and people will have their preferences, right? Just like the MILF category, right? Like, people have their preferences on I just don't know what we're asking, you know?
I have a response to that. So I think that, especially compared to the thousands, I think we're doing a way better job than we used to. I really do. The culture that I was raised in, it was fucking gross. And by that, I just mean, like, literally go back and watch American Pie. It's framed as like an emancipatory movie where it's like, these knuckleheaded guys learn to value women. But if you look at the fucking framing of it, they actually like, I think they create child porn without the consent of one of the participants. They treat every woman like an experience. They don't actually value any of the people who are participating in their sexual escapades. It's actually pretty toxic when you go back and look at it. And also, when we were talking about, like, you know, the socialism or capitalism does these nefarious things or whatever, woke capitalism is changing some of these things. I think Victoria's Secret dropped the angels. I think they're trying to get more realistic. Yeah, I think they're trying to get more realistic models. They said that they were going to launch a maternity line. I'm pretty sure that Miss America has probably dropped significantly in popularity, probably over the past 2 or 3 decades. And then also, I think there should be cultural pressure. So you're talking about, like, what do we do? I think pointing out that child beauty pageants are fucking weird is a good thing to do. I think that ending child marriages and pressuring Republicans who defend it is a good idea. I think that basically it shouldn't be like, oh no, we're going to bring in all the Muslims and then everybody's going to be child marrying. No, that shouldn't be the argument. The argument should be like, hey, you got a bunch of redneck assholes in Florida. I literally looked it up. Florida and West Virginia right now who are marrying off 15 and 16-year-old girls. That's fucking insane. Like, I don't care what religion you're from. That's fucking insane. And then I know it would never be passed. But a cultural pressure, like Elvedy was saying, to raise the age for pornographic actresses, regardless of the way that they appear, might be a good solution, because basically at 18, you're not a fully conscious adult. Not every single sex worker who participates in the pornographic industry expresses regret, but also making those decisions at 18 or fucking 19 to do a gangbang on videotape? Like, holy shit, like, talk about fucking up your life.
Look, don't call me out, all right? Look, I
was calling out Mia Khalifa, but, you know, hey, it is what it is. But no, raising that to 25 or 20 or something like that. Jesus Christ. I mean, I get it. I don't know. I think we can culturally call these things out. We can build pressure, and compared to when I was a teenager, it's already a lot better than it was. I don't think you guys realize how fucking wild the thousands were.
Yeah, but like but
Gross
can't I don't know. So God, we're not having the age of consent conversation, but like it's adjacent to it. But
we need more
in the end,
libertarians.
it's always like, well,
No, please.
when can you make a decision? When are you allowed to make a decision about yourself, right? So you're saying, like, I don't think you would ever say that. No, like, so I made a sort of joke, because, you know, I could have been involved. I don't know. But if there is a guy at 18 involved with the porn industry, we would never question his decision to do that, right? Like,
that's because men are
right?
horny.
Like,
That's because straight men are horny fuck machines. They'll fuck a
My
couch.
man out there
This
getting
person-
bitches and getting paid for it.
Oh, come
yeah,
on.
like this dude has made it.
Come
He made it
on.
to the promised land, right? Like, good decision making on his part, right? He decided to make money and have a lot of fun on just doing that on camera, right?
But
for
people
a
would make that
woman-
same argument for a 16 or 15-year-old boy.
Hold on.
doing that, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Again, this is what I said, the age of consent argument. But anyway, but for a woman, like, at that age, you're like, well, does she really know what she's doing?
But
Is
maybe
it
we
really
should
the
change
same?
that. But maybe we should change
Can I
that pressure
respond to
because
that?
of teachers. Because there's a lot of female teachers in the United States of America who are banging teenage boys, and the South Park episode was completely on the head, where most people go like, nice. And that's fucked up. It's fucked up that female teachers can bang their students, and we're just like, yeah, well, he probably wanted it. Like, goddamn.
Yeah, actually, can I respond to that and also respond to what I wanted to say to Connor? Prime.
What? Sorry. Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so the way I'd respond to that is, once again, thank you for calling out the patriarchy. This is the patriarchy in action. This is the patriarchy in the 21st century. That is what allows these double standards to exist. You know, that's just what's happening, you know, when we're like, oh wow, look at this dude getting involved in porn so young. Yeah, good for him. Like, that's the patriarchy, because we're just trained to, you know, cishet men are just horny fuck machines that will fuck anything. They'll fuck a couch, they'll fuck a ketchup packet if they have to. They just need to constantly be jerking it and cooming. And whereas women, it's like, oh no, don't get involved. Your virginity is so valuable. You know, whether or not you agree with that, I think, you know, regardless of your gender or gender orientation, your virginity should be valued. I think it's disgusting that, you know, we tell men like, yeah, nice job fucking 5 women tonight. Like, no, I think we should shame those men. But to respond to what I wanted to say to Connor,
is there a problem with being promiscuous?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there
see, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, it is a
definitely
different
disagree with you.
conversation.
It's a
Definitely
different
disagree with you.
conversation.
But go ahead. Sorry. Continue.
But yeah, I'm just saying that's my values, and it should not be, you know, double standards. Period. I think we can all agree on that. We shouldn't treat women and men differently when it comes to promiscuity. So what I was gonna say to Connor though is, like, I just like. I obviously do not care about the porn industry, but as the, you know, capitalist shell, I feel obliged to say this, is that it's like the age of adulthood. I know you don't want to make this about the age of consent, but if we're going to have a federal age, we're also going to have the ability for states to lower it. It is going to be that federal age that is the bar. So unless we raise the federal age of consent to 20, and all the other states are like, well, we're just keep it at 18, because why not? That is a possibility, but that is the only way I see it, that, you know, we, you know, keep these 18-year-olds out of the porn industry. And also, we kind of just see 18 as the age of adulthood, because you get the right to pretty much do everything except for drink. So...
Yeah, but but my counterposition to this would be like, this is where I would
counterpoint.
Yeah, my counterpoint. I didn't want to use it twice, but I'll use it twice. So my counterpoint would be that, like, yeah, so I was talking about, like, this is a supply side problem, or this is a demand side problem, where, like, everybody's demanding this kind of shit. But this is where I think, like, supply side solutions could be extremely effective. Because basically, like, teaching kids, like, so for instance, I think the conservatives fundamentally dropped the ball when consent culture became a thing in the popular narrative, and they started making fun of it. I think they dropped the fucking ball, and they need to pick it up. Because basically, what conservative sex culture basically says is that you need to be mature, you need to be responsible, you need to communicate with your partner, you need to plan your lives, you need to discuss when you're going to have children, you need to get your, you know, ideal conservative culture is like, you need to get your education first, you need to get your jobs first before you have sex or have children. That's the conservative message. So that could map, while not being identical, it could map very neatly onto consent culture, where consent culture says you can do what you want to do, but you have to do so in a safe, intelligent, emotionally, and physically responsible way. And I really feel like conservatives, they just missed it. They just completely missed the opportunity.
They also shot themselves in the foot, because they refused to, you know, catch up to times at all. And, you know, while I think when it comes to the promiscuity, I don't think you should. I think you absolutely have to, you know, jog a little bit and get up to speed. You know, don't live in the fucking 20th century, please.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So going to respect everyone's time, because we're running into the end of this. However, to my audience, we still have more content for you. In fact, I want to continue this conversation with other people. So we're going to go into our open walk-on panel. The stream is not ending. We still have more content coming to you. Hours more content. So there's no reason to click away. I'm just going to give an outro to all these amazing people. but we still have more coming to you. And if you just found this channel, right, hit that follow button. Hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on, because I do this 6 days a week. Don't want you to miss out on all these great conversations. So yeah, hit that follow button right this second. Yeah, so we're going to start by letting. Damn it! That's not the wrong emote. I don't listen to people in chat spamming the incorrect emote. The stream is not ending. The stream is continuing.
Did they forget to do the red X out one?
Yeah, they did. They did.
Plebs in chat.
But yeah, so we will continue on with the content. And I want to continue on with this conversation in our open panel coming right after this. All right, so we'll start with Riverboat Jack. Riverboat Jack, god damn it, you're great. Oh. And I actually do mean that. I'm always so happy when you stop by and give perspective. I'm really glad we could grab you here for this particular conversation. So, Riverboat Jack, please tell a little about yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Riverboat Jack. I am a lefty socialist streamer that your parents are afraid of. Come check me out sometime, especially if you're one of those parents. Yeah, I talk about socialism, decommodification, capitalism being bad, etc., etc., etc. All the things that make Connor cringe, except that when I talk with him on one-on-one, he agrees with me on like 90% of the things I say.
Like 70, all right? Jesus.
Well, thank you so much, Riverboat Jack. Link is in chat. That's being swallowed up by Samantha Banana spamming poll is live. All right. Well, anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, let's go to Shark. Shark, thank you so much again for coming through. Oh my God, my computer's slowing down right now. Thank you so much for jumping in. Like, this is the most I've heard you talk, so it looks like you're pretty interested in this topic.
No, I appreciate it. I love to give my 2 cents. It's always great. And thanks for having me on again. Yeah, what's up, everyone? My name is Shark300. The word shark, the number 3, the letter O, and the word 0. I had to come up with that because people keep saying my name is hard to spell. Listen, you can't make fun of me for it. I made it when I was 13. All right? All right, you can't do it. We took this whole part of the discussion, not abuse people who are children. All right? You cannot do that. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a really fun talk. I basically do the normal sort of politics stuff. I identify as a socialist, but we kind of take politics in a less political route, if you know what I mean. I personally really like to dig into the commentary community and what they're doing around there. And it's been really fun. You can find me everywhere, same exact name, on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and even Facebook, where the boomers reside. And come on, we have a lot of fun. I talk about men's rights, politics, socialism, internet culture, and all the best memes this side of Machu Picchu. Okay, so come on.
Yeah. That's a cool sign off. Nice work there. All right, next we have again a goddamn VIP. Got to put some respect on his name. His name is Counterpoints, right? Always here, always ready. Always hot, always horny. Our friend.
I'm on a panel with a bunch of leftists. I have a third of the horniness of the rest of them. Anyways, my name is Connor. I run a YouTube channel named Counterpoints. Basically, I do all sorts of shit. I'm a political nerd. I'm a science fiction nerd. I'm a Marine veteran and a law enforcement veteran, so I break down media. We're doing Bo Burnham's Inside, Full Metal Jacket, and End of Watch right now. So basically, you can do !Connor, CONOR, in the chat. You'll be able to find my link. You can also go onto Twitter, and @ConnorPoints is on your screen right now, spelled correctly, CONORPOINTS. So you can follow me on Twitter and then find my YouTube right there. And then also I do what's called the Mask Off podcast with Tiberius D and Samantha Banana, who's in chat right now. Basically, if you want to see a bunch of like right-wingers and centrists talk in a non-lefty sphere about our views, if that's interesting to you at all, then come check us out on Sundays between 9 to 11. And then occasionally we do a Friday show. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Please, if you haven't followed Prime, follow Prime. Please, if you have the ability to sub or to get bits or whatever the fuck Twitch does, because I don't understand it because I'm a fucking boomer, please do so for Prime. We're going to be doing this for the next 30 years, so you just need to buckle in. So
damn right we are. Okay, thanks so much. Let's put my Connor in chat to find his channel, and please definitely go check him out. He's a great guy. Next, we have Shadows. Shadows, who swore up and down to me in my DMs that he'd have nothing to say on the second topic, right? Nothing,
Yeah, I know.
no
It's kind of
opinions.
weird how that turned out. I thought I wouldn't have much to say, because I actually thought it would end up being age of consent, but no, you whipped us into shape. You're like, no, do not go there. So, yeah, you know, it's always a pleasure being here. I always love being here, part of these panels, even the times when Prime likes to join the dog pile, because I am that much of a fucking capitalist. And you know what? I will never back down. I love me some markets. And if you want to, you know, ask me about that, you want to ask a neoliberal about that kind of stuff, you know, you can head on over, because I do politics from a liberal perspective. I like to be a neoliberal shill, and I also like to play piano. You know, we were mentioning personality. I do tickle the ivory ladies. Yeah. So yeah, I play some piano. I also
That's so racist. Oh my God, did you hear that?
I didn't take it that way. I took it another way.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I like to play some piano. I also like to arrange and compose. I'll be doing that tomorrow. I usually would say I'll be doing that, you know, after this, but I actually have to go yell at Tiberius Steve over because he was kink shaming on Twitter. So yeah, definitely come and follow if you want that. I'll also be doing some more Politics Wednesday. So yeah.
Our friend Doobie in chat really wants to talk to you after this one open panel. Will you give him that honor?
You know what? I will. Yeah, I'll probably hop on the open panel in maybe an hour or so. I'll do that.
Okay. All right. So Doobie, get ready. That'll be exciting. So yeah, we'd love to have you. All right. Next, Kevin FM. Thank you so much for coming through and sharing your lawyer brain here. I honestly forgot that you're a lawyer. So that first topic was not designed for you at all, but I'm very glad that you happened to be here. So Kevin, please tell the world about yourself.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much again for having me. So, just like the last time I was on the Reverie, this was flung at me at the very last second, so I appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, I am Kevin FM. I talk about law stuff, politics stuff, and other things that interest my weird brain. So, if you guys feel like talking about, if you guys want to learn about depressing history, or just, you know, esoteric law stuff in general, then please feel free to join my channel. That is the Kevin FM. And we actually just hit affiliate, so you guys also get a bunch of cool emotes. So yeah, please give me a join if you're interested.
Everyone, please check out the Kevin FM. Link is in chat. All right. Let's go to Lonerbox. Lonerbox, thank you as well for jumping in. It's been a pleasure hearing from you and hearing your takes.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you want to hear more from me, you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and all that carry on. Name's Lonerbox on all of them. Mostly make video essays about history or fascism or internet culture or occasionally socialism. And yeah, you can go and have a look at that. And then once in a blue moon, I will come on debates and make capitalists theatrically roll their eyes and huff while I say base shit. So more of that in the future. And it's very late here, so I'm going to take this chance to duck out now. Thanks a lot for having me, Prime, and especially on such a good-looking panel, I should say. None of you need any face tune. You're all beautiful on the inside, outside.
Aww.
Nice.
Agree to disagree on that one, but all right, go ahead.
Of course, in English. Of course.
Well, thank you so much, Lonerbox, for being here on.
Sweet dreams, you fucking fanny. Sorry about it.
LBD, thank you for joining in, like an hour and a half, and to help us out. We had an opening in our panel. So, Kevin, I'm trying to get this person out. Are you talking? Oh, I was just talking to someone else. LBD, yeah. Thank you so much for coming through, and we appreciate having your perspective. Tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, so as you can see from my setup, I'm not a streamer, so I'm basically nobody. I just came here because, well, I was introduced to this panel thanks to Katarana. And yeah, it's always fun to discuss with people that have interesting opinions, share ideas, and I feel like this is a really productive thing to do. So yeah, it's always fun to talk, and that's it.
Thank you so much. And you are far from a nobody. You are somebody, and someone we definitely want more of in the future. So thanks so much. Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So to everyone else, we are going to go into an open walk on panel. Any of these fine, amazing people who, I mean, there are apps to help you out. They can join us. No, they'll never join me after that. But any of these fine, amazing people, they're all beautiful, can join us. But if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, and your knowledge with my community. I know they appreciate just as much as I do. Have a good one.
Bye.